I'm here. Who am I talking to?
Oh, you're talking to Lennox Lewis. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about you?
I'm hanging in there.
So I asked you a question many times, and I'd like to get an answer to that. I'd like to know if you support racism against white people, yes or no?
It's impossible for non-whites to be racist. So,
no.
no.
No, that's not true. Racism is not an invented imaginary concept. Racism is a real thing. People can very easily be racist against white people and are racist against white people. And I would like to know if you support that, yes or no.
Well, that's not the reason the word racist was invented in the 30s. It was directed at white people, and that's the common usage today. So nobody uses it against anyone else other than white people. So, no, they can't be racist. So I can't really support hamsters the right to fly because they can't fly, and I can't support racism against whites because technically they can't be racist.
So Louis Farrakhan is not a racist?
No.
When he talks about Jews, white Jews being Hebes, that's not racist.
Well, again, the whole concept of racism was directed at whites, and that's a common usage. People don't really call Farrakhan racist.
Yes, they do.
Why? Because he's black.
Yes, they do call him racist. I believe he's a racist.
Do you believe that Nelson Mandela was racist?
No, he said he wasn't.
Well, when he sings songs about killing white people, was that racist?
That was a national song of resistance. Now, Nelson Mandela, by the way, encouraged his nation when he was leading it to reconcile. He said he did not believe in black states. He did not believe in white states. That was a statement against racism against white people. So he believes in democratic states, not white states, and not black states. Now, if he sings a song that has bad lyrics in it while he's, leading his people, I can forgive him for that, as long as he does not practice racism against white people. Because he was the president of South Africa, and he could have, if he wanted to, oppressed white people, and he chose not to.
So if white people came up with a song about killing black people, you would not have a problem with that?
If South Africa was 90% white and 10% black, and the black people of South Africa were oppressing the white people, they very well would have done that, and I would have supported it. So you wouldn't support that. You wouldn't support white people fighting for freedom. You wouldn't support white people fighting for freedom. You wouldn't support white people fighting for freedom if they were horribly oppressed?
Well, that's what I'm doing.
No, you're not.
That's what the mantra is all about.
No, it's not. It's a lie.
No, it's definitely not a lie. I mean, you can systematically
now you're telling me
that white people have been targeted with the program of genocide. You can
by who? By what conspiracy?
By you anti-whites.
But I'm not anti-white. That's a lie. You are anti-human. You are against most human beings on the planet, and you're against me because I don't agree with you.
Well,
you and your associates would like to kill me for disagreeing with you. Many of your associates have threatened my life and told me that all race traitors will be executed in the tribunals. I know what the tribunals are. I've been to the bug swarm. I saw your instructions. I know what you are. You're a Nazi.
I'm a Nazi because I don't hate white people.
No, you're a Nazi because you're an ethnic white nationalist who wants to exterminate all brown people.
Well, if I'm a white nationalist, what would be the sense of exterminating people if I want a country for white people? If I want to create a country, because white people aren't allowed to have their own countries. White people have been singled out, and anti-whites have stated that white people and white people only should not have their own countries.
That's not true.
All we are saying, actually, it is true. All we are saying is that we would like a human right to self-preservation and self-determination, and then people like you say that we are Nazis if we want a human right. So,
no, I'm calling you Nazis because you're members of the American Nazi Party. Bob Whitaker is a neo-Nazi. All of these people that are pushing white nationalism are Nazis. Most of them have swastikas painted on their bodies somewhere, just like the white nationalists who killed 6 Sikhs Just the other day in Wisconsin, you want to murder anyone who is brown, anyone who disagrees with you, anyone who doesn't want to live in your white state. Now, I don't support ethnic states of any type. I don't support Israel. I don't support Saudi Arabia. I don't support any state discriminating against white people or black people or brown people.
So let me ask you this: is China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, are they Asian supremacists for keeping their country Asians, or for the Asians, or does this only apply to white people?
If they prevent white people from moving to Asia because they're not Asian, then they are Asian supremacists. And I don't think we should be emulating China or Taiwan or Saudi Arabia. If they are racist, they should be condemned. All white people should be allowed to live anywhere in the world they choose. White people should not be discriminated against because of their race. That's anti-racist, and that is not anti-white.
So what you're saying is that only white people have got it right. Nobody else has got it right when it comes to racism, because Africa is, for the Africans, they're murdering white people out of South Africa. They did it in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. In Asia, they don't practice diversity. So what you were saying essentially
no, they do practice
is that
diversity.
White people are the only people on the face of the planet that have got it right.
Nope.
And you're not going to focus on...
There's immigration all over the world. In the Middle East, there's a lot of immigration. In Africa, there's a lot of immigration. Now, if you want to single out instances of genocide and say that's the norm and that's what we should emulate, I'm against that. And I don't think, you're a white supremacist, so you're going to tell me that all brown people commit genocide and we don't. Well, that's not true. Genocide happens periodically, and it's wrong. I don't support that, okay? I support immigration for everybody, everywhere.
All right. First and foremost, you said you weren't going to do talking points, and you didn't want me to do any mantra talking points. And now what you were saying is, for the simple fact that I do not embrace a program of genocide targeted at white people, I'm a white supremacist, I'm a neo-Nazi, I've got swastika tattoos. Well, let me tell you something.
I didn't say you had swastika tattoos.
I am in no way affiliated with any white supremacist group whatsoever.
Then you're a fool.
Then I'm a fool.
Yes, because the man who wrote the mantra is a Nazi. He's a white supremacist.
No,
I saw the evidence myself.
No, he is not a Nazi.
So when he said leave the swastikas at home, he wasn't talking about Nazism. When he said don't let them know you're a Nazi, that didn't mean he was a Nazi.
What?
When he said leave the swastikas at home, he was just kidding. He wasn't talking to Nazis when he said leave the swastikas at home for now. Don't let everyone know how much you hate Jews. Keep it under wraps. Was that just a joke?
Well, first off, I never heard him say that.
I did. I heard him say that. I read it on his website.
He did or didn't say it. I don't really care, to be
exactly.
To be
you don't care.
I don't care what other people on this swarm blame. I just don't hate white people.
Well, neither do I.
That's as simple as it gets. I've never been affiliated with the KKK or any white supremacist organization. You say that to try to intimidate white children into, you try to intimidate them into embracing their genocide. It's the only two choices you want white children to have. Either they embrace their global genocide or they are neo-Nazi, skinhead, KKK white supremacists.
But Caucasians are the third largest ethnicity on the planet besides South and East Asians. Now, how is that a genocide? How is it a genocide when immigration happens? Is it genocide because brown people exist? Because if that's genocide, the only way you're going to solve it is by exterminating brown people. Now, if you want to create a white ethnic majority in the world, you're going to have a lot of babies or kill a lot of people.
I don't care about who is majority in the world. What I'm saying is, and what the people at the swarm are saying is, only white countries have been flooded with the third world. Japan is 99.6% East Asian. China is 99.99% East Asian. Same with Korea. Same with Taiwan. Africa has rejected diversity. Vietnam and Cambodia. No. Everywhere in the world, they have rejected it. But you say white children, you single out white children, mind you, and say that only white children need to embrace this massive immigration, third world immigration, and forced assimilation.
I already told you that wasn't true.
You guys are trying to justify taking every single white country on the face of the planet and turning it into a non-white country.
That's not true. That is not true. There are no white or non-white countries. There's only countries where people live as equals. Now, I don't support ethnic nationalism anywhere. not Asia, not Africa, and there isn't. In most places, it's not ethnic nationalism. We have a lot of immigration here because we have opportunity here. If there was more opportunity in Mexico, white people would flood into Mexico. If there was more opportunity in Africa, white people would go to Africa, and I would support that. I don't support excluding people, and the fact that we have immigration is not some giant conspiracy theory. You don't have to put on a tinfoil hat to understand why people are immigrating. You just look at economics. Europe had a big deficit of labor. That's why they have a big immigration boom. And the UAE, they needed labor. The UAE is 71% immigrants in the Middle East. 71%. And that's okay. I don't oppose that. I don't oppose if Japan gets more room for more people and more people decide to go there. That's fine. I don't care.
Japan is rich. They have a decent economy. Same with Korea. Same with China. Small. But they have not been flooded with the third world. So, you could say it's not a conspiracy, but in 1965, they decided that every white country was going to be non-white.
Who decided that?
They created they completely eradicated the idea that white countries are for white people.
Who?
The anti-whites. People like you. People like you.
No, I didn't do that in 1965. That's a conspiracy theory.
No, it's not. 1965 Immigration Act. United States had a white immigration policy up until 1965. United States.
So we allow brown people to immigrate, and that's bad.
White. 91% white in 1965, and today they're less than half of the births. It is a deliberate program of genocide. You watch on the TV.
No, it is economics and demographics. People in Mexico come to the United States because we destroyed their economy. That's why we have people come to the United States, because of the economy. It was not some giant conspiracy.
I've allowed you to go on like these 3-minute tirades, and then when I want to respond to it, then you want to interrupt.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, United States was 91% white in 1965. Today, less than half the births in America are white.
Demographics.
They promote miscegenation on television. They have people like you going around telling white children if they don't embrace the fact that they are being replaced, then they are neo-Nazi, skinhead, KKK, white supremacists.
If they have the card in their pocket, yeah.
What now?
If they have the card in their pocket, yes, I do. If they have swastikas painted on them, yes, I call them Nazis.
Well, I have no swastika. I have no affiliation with any white supremacist.
Yes, you do. You are promoting the mantra which was written by a Nazi. If you're not a Nazi, you're being used by a Nazi.
Well, I'll tell you what. If the Nazis are making better points than you guys, you should be fucking worried.
I'm not worried, because the Nazis created a genocide in the past, and they would create a genocide again, and we will not stand for another genocide. We will not stand for white people who have most of the wealth in this country, who have 79% of the population, who have most of the power to create a giant genocide against Hispanics or blacks or Jews or anybody else. We will not allow you to create another fucking genocide.
Okay, well, except the genocide that you guys support.
No, I don't have genocide.
England, Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, United States, that they all need to become non-white nations.
No, that's not true. If you're rich and you're having babies, you can't complain that you're a victim of genocide just because we don't get upset when a white woman marries a black man. That does not mean we're telling people they can't marry white people. If someone wants to marry you and have 15 white children, that is your right. Nobody's killing you. Nobody's loading you on a truck. Nobody's preventing you from reproducing. Nobody is doing anything to you. You are free.
Genocide when it happened to Aborigines with massive non-Aborigine immigration and forced assimilation. That was Aborigine genocide.
Well, the bullets too. The bullets that we hit.
Actually, there was no massive murder.
Yes,
of
there
Aborigines.
was. Yes, there was.
No more so than there's massive murders of whites through gang violence and things like that.
Well, you're talking about Australia, right? Aborigines. I'm talking about the Native Americans.
Correct.
There was a huge genocide. We killed thousands, millions of Native Americans. We wiped out their culture. We converted the land into forms that they could not use to sustain their society. Now, that's not happening to us. Mexican immigrants are not converting the land.
Were they Native American supremacists for not embracing their genocide, or does this only apply to whites?
Were they Native American supremacists? I really don't know. I just know they were fighting for their lives, and we're not. I'm not being murdered. I'm not being driven out of America by non-white people. I am free to have children or not have children. I'm not a victim of genocide. Now, if the Native Americans outnumbered me and were exterminating me and I tried to defend myself, that would be normal. But for me to try and kill all of them is not normal.
With violent acts, correct?
What's that?
You're saying that genocide only applies when when it happens through violent activities.
Well, genocide is when your genes have been eliminated, and if people mix with other races of people, that's not eliminating genes.
Well, why was it genocide when it happened to the Aborigines?
The Aborigines in Australia, you mean, or in America? Now, I don't really know what happened in Australia. I'm not an expert on Australian history, but I do know that there's two definitions of genocide that people generally use. Okay, it's massive slaughter, eliminating genes, or eliminating your society completely and totally wiping out your society off the face of the earth. Now, those are two, you could agree with either one of those. I don't care. But the genocide of the Native Americans is called that because we eradicated their society. It does not exist anymore. And
actually, it does. I used to live
on
in
reservations. On reservations,
it exists.
Yeah, where they're
But
they're not living the way they used to.
genocide,
They're
the
not
fact
hunting
that
and
they
fishing
exist.
for a living.
I'm sorry?
They're not hunting and fishing for a living. They're not controlling their own land. They are being controlled in little prisons.
In Montana, I think they do hunt for a living.
Well, that's great. I'm glad if they do.
But you're right that the fact that their lifestyle changed because of massive immigration and a war against them. And what happened to the Aborigines was massive immigration and forced assimilation. They were not given a choice. Their way of life was destroyed. What I am saying is, okay, that is fine if you anti-whites want to.
I'm not anti-white. Don't call me that.
On the face of the planet, with tens of millions or hundreds of millions of non-whites, but you need to give white people, normal white people, a choice as to self-preservation and self-determination. There is nowhere for normal white people to go.
You can go anywhere you want. You can marry a white woman, live in a town where no black people live, if that's what you want. You cannot tell other people where to live. You can't tell me who to have sex with. You can't tell me what to think. Yes, you are. You can't tell people where to live. You can't tell black people you can't live in this area because you're not white. That's what you were talking about doing. You're talking about excluding other people. You're talking about limiting other people's freedoms. You have the freedom to live as a white man however you want, marry a white woman, have white kids, live in a white town. You're free to even be a racist if you want to be. Nobody's going to stop you, but you can't enforce your beliefs on other people.
Unless you're an anti-white, then you can force every white country to become non-white. That's what you're saying.
Nobody is forcing that.
Your beliefs onto other people, but we can't
immigrants
have
come into the country,
a human right to self-preservation. I mean,
that's not self-preservation.
I keep letting you go on for like 3 or 4 minutes, and the minute I go on for like 10 seconds, you just want to stop me. So this is pretty much stupid.
It is stupid.
I think we both know that what is going on here. I mean,
you're advocating genocide. That's what's going on.
I can't even speak without you wanting to interrupt me like 4 seconds in, and I've been pretty nice here and allowed you to go on and on.
Well, cry me a river.
Well, it's just a matter of you if you want to man up here and actually have a debate, or do you want to do this little vagina monologue where you talk for 14 minutes and then I respond for 5 seconds and then you decide your vagina is bleeding and you have to stop something?
Oh, that's nice misogyny once again, accusing me of being a woman for disagreeing with you. That's great.
Well, you accuse me of being a Nazi for not hating white people.
Well, if you are following a Nazi and doing his work, yes, I will call you that.
Well, you are far more of a Nazi than me. I don't support genocide on anybody. You say
and
that
what are you going to do? How are you going to create a white country without genocide? How are you going to create a white country without genocide?
You have tried to justify genocide against Aborigines by saying it was okay because they could have fucked more.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
That's totally ridiculous.
You did.
No, I didn't. That's a lie.
Oh,
You're a
okay,
liar
whatever.
who
You
came
said
to my
about
channel
white
with
people.
several different usernames, pretending to be different people.
Well,
And
like
you're pretending to be
pretend
Lennox
you're
Lewis.
anti-racist. So what? When you're really
And you won't
anti-white.
answer my question. Do you support racism against white people? Yes or no? Answer
Well,
the goddamn question.
According to you anti-whites, non-whites can't be racist.
That's
so
not the
I
answer.
can't really
Yes or
support
no?
it. Again, you admit that you don't call Asians Asian supremacists for keeping their countries Asian, and you don't call Africans African supremacists for keeping their countries for Africans.
Again,
So,
you lie. I
according to
would
you
call that
anti-whites,
non-white
supremacist. Can't
supremacist.
be racist. So how
Are you
can I
not
support
listening to
something
anything
that
I'm
you
saying? I
that
told
they
you I
can't
didn't
be,
do that.
Capable of?
I told you that if they excluded white people, they would be supremacists.
Well, okay. Every white country has already been flooded. Why are you so focused on attacking white people who don't embrace it? Rather
You're
than
attacking white people,
putting
not
the
me.
focus on flooding Asia with tens of millions of non-Asians.
But
Why
it's
don't you
you.
put the focus
It's
on
you
that?
that's
Since
supporting
you're
that's.
non-racist.
You
are
are the one attacking white people.
Asian countries, white countries. Why don't you
You
do
are
that?
the one attacking white people, not me. You're attacking everyone who's not racist. Who is white? You call us anti-white. That's just a ad hominem attack. It's a lie. I keep telling you I'm not against white people. I support white people living everywhere in the world, and I oppose racism against white people just as strongly.
So basically, I think what you're trying to say is you support genocide of all races. You just want to start with white people first.
Genocide is not some made-up term that you can just use for whatever you want. Okay?
Well, when you
just because people live together in peace, there you are interrupting me. Just because people live together in peace does not make it genocide.
It's genocide.
No, it doesn't.
Actually, it is. Deliberately inflicting conditions of life on a group that are calculated to bring about its destruction. You have Denmark that's calculated to be non-white, Luxembourg, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, France, England, United States. All these white countries are calculated to become non-white within a few years. They know that they're globally replacing white people. They refuse to stop.
Who is globally replacing white people? White people? The white people that are running these countries are trying to replace themselves? Who is doing this? Take off your tinfoil hat and tell me who is in this giant conspiracy.
You anti-whites. I mean,
who? Who are the anti-white? I'm not anti-white. You're anti-white.
I see a name, Nate Glenn. I'm going to say that name. That's
not anti-white.
That will do anything to support genocide onto white children.
And genocide is defined by you as black people or brown people existing. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Okay, so you're saying that the Aborigines, the reason they didn't embrace their genocide was because they hated white people, and you're
not answering any of my questions. You're just changing the subject and talking about nonsense and bullshit and conspiracy theories. You haven't answered the first goddamn question that I asked you.
The subtext as to what you were saying and putting it in a way that makes you feel like an idiot.
Yeah, you just won't answer any questions. You're acting like an idiot because you keep talking about Aborigines and Native Americans and it's genocide because you don't have a white country. But if you create a white country, you're going to have to move all of the black people out or kill them. And then you'll still have the black people outside your country.
There is territory in the United States where there's not a whole lot of minorities there. So white people could create a country within the United States, and it wouldn't be a big deal. And then you guys can continue practicing.
So then, all the black people that are in that part of the country, you just get rid of them.
Who want to practice genocide? I think you should have the right.
You don't know what genocide is. If I have a baby with a black person, my genes have not disappeared and my life has not been destroyed. That is not genocide. If I have a baby, it's not genocide. It's not genocide when a black child is born.
It was genocide when it happened to the Aborigines.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, actually it was. They won an international.
That's not what we did. We took them off the land. We converted the land into something they couldn't use. We killed almost all of them. That is why it was genocide. It wasn't just because we were there. If we lived with the Indians in peace and we hunted alongside them and allowed them to have their way of life, it would not have been genocide. Even if their babies were white, that's not genocide.
There was no massive extermination of Aborigines.
Yes, there was.
No more so.
You're a liar. You keep lying over and over again and making up shit that's not true.
They experienced genocide through massive immigration and forced.
You won't answer any questions. You won't even say that you're against racism against white people. You won't say anything that's true. You're just repeating these moron mantra talking points about genocide and making up stuff about Aborigines.
I've never told you other than pointing out the fact you're an anti-white. That's the only
Which is
thing.
a lie. I'm not an anti-white.
Mentioned.
You are anti-white.
Well, it's pretty obvious you are, because you wouldn't try to justify the genocide of Aborigines. You want to justify the genocide of white people.
No.
So you are anti-white.
There is no genocide of white people. When you're alive and you're richer than the minorities in this country, you have more privilege, you have the freedom to reproduce, the freedom to live wherever you want. No one is threatening you or your way of life. That's not genocide.
Again, you wouldn't try to make excuses for the Aborigine
No, I'm not
genocide,
making
would
excuses
you?
for anybody.
Oh, for anybody. Okay. Again, there was no massive extermination of Aborigines.
That is
They
a lie.
were brought onto the
That
land.
is another
They were
lie.
forced to assimilate with white people.
That is a lie.
And it brought a destruction to their
They were
culture and
forced
their racial
to
group. And
abandon
that was
their way of life.
genocide, and an international court agreed.
What's that got to do with you?
Because it's the same genocide.
No, it's not.
Well, you were saying that it wasn't genocide against Aborigines because they could
I
have left
said
the
that it's
West.
not genocide against you because nobody's
They-
killing you. No one is
they-
replacing you with
have
another
sex
way
with
of life.
each other.
Your way of life is not threatened. Your life is not threatened. You are free to have as many children as you want. And if you have a baby with a black woman, your genes have not been eliminated. That is not genocide, and you're not a Native American, and it's not the same thing.
Okay, so it wasn't genocide against the Aborigines because they could have had sex with whoever they wanted. And
That's
they could
not
have
the
lived
reason.
anywhere they want. Therefore, it's not genocide, even though their culture and race was destroyed based upon that.
Your culture and race is not being destroyed.
Actually, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. America is every day is becoming more and more like Mexico.
And our culture is the same. Our culture is
Our
Mexican and American and Native and a million other things, and it's not changing just because people have different color skin.
Actually, America was created by a group of white people. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And they came
Okay,
here, they were
okay.
already natives, and they were already Mexicans.
And they put in the Constitution for
And we took over
ourselves
half of
and our
America.
posterity, which means it wasn't supposed to be for everybody.
Oh, so it's not for everybody. It's not for blacks. It's not for Mexicans.
Well-
All of those people got to go. Massive ethnic cleansing.
No. Actually, nobody from the swarm ever says anything about massive cleansing or anything
That's
like that.
because you're liars.
All we want is a piece of land where we can continue our self-preservation and self-determination.
So when
if
they
this
say
was
white
happening
pride
against black people,
worldwide,
and
that's
it
just a
did,
joke.
When it happened against black people, you called it colonialism, and it was a horrible thing. But when it happens to white people, then it's supposed to be something that's celebrated and supposed to be a great thing.
Are
when
black
it's
people
obviously
ruling
not.
over
The whole
you
world
as a
has
colonial
rejected it.
overlord? Are they colonizing you and ruling over you and destroying your country?
What did they not do that to the Aborigines? Their culture and everything was
Again,
destroyed?
you're changing the subject. It's not
I'm
about
not-
the Aborigines. It's about you. You're the one that's supposedly being a victim of genocide.
You're talking apples and apples here. What happened to
Oh,
the
so you're just like the
Aborigines is the same shit
Aborigines.
that's happening to white people. And you don't like me bringing it up because it is
Because
such
it's
a,
nonsense.
a direct correlation there that what happened to them and how they were destroyed is happening to white people.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You're just like the Aborigines. You're hunting and fishing, and the immigrants are coming in and shooting at you and preventing you from getting a job or using the land. They're just killing massive numbers of white people every day and just moving us out, putting us in reservations, and ruling over us. That's exactly what the Mexican immigrants are doing to you because, it's not that they just need to get a job to feed their children, so they come here as individuals and get jobs to feed their children and then contribute to our economy. No, they're colonists, and you're a Native American.
I'm not sure what
It's
your
just
point is.
exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same.
Are you calling Hispanics primitive or something? I don't understand what your point was.
You're so full of shit. You know what I said. You are so full of
Is
shit.
there
You come
something
to my
wrong with-
channel
let me-
pretending to
let
be
me
all
ask you
kinds of
this.
different
Is-
people.
Is there something wrong with Mexico?
You come to my channel pretending to be all sorts of different people. You pretend you're a boxer from England. You pretend to be a black guy.
And you pretended to be an anti-racist, and now we find out that you support
you won't even tell me that you're against racism. You won't even tell me that you're against racism against white people, dude. You won't even say what I have said. I have come out in favor of white people, and you have not. So don't tell me I'm anti-white.
I applied the word.
No, you didn't. You won't answer a goddamn question. Yes or no?
You say that.
Do you support racism against white people? Yes or no?
So I agree with.
No, you don't. You won't answer the question.
Presentation in your interpretation that non-whites can't be racist. So.
Racism is not just a made-up thing. It's for real. I keep telling you that it's not just imaginary. Racism is real. If you go to Japan and they hate you because you're white and they won't let you have a job, do you support that, yes or no?
I wouldn't go to Asia.
Oh, great. So you're not going to answer the goddamn question. You go to Asia. You can't help it. Okay, you have to go. There's no other choice. When you get there, they hate you because you're white. Now, is that good or bad?
Well, that's not
yeah,
racism.
I'm not going to answer.
Again,
you can't answer the first goddamn question
on the planet, and most of them do not have the word racist in there. And the closest word that they can find
it doesn't matter what they call it. It doesn't matter what they call it. They hate you because you're white. They won't give you a job because you're white, and you have to go to Japan, and you can't get a job. Now, is that good or bad? Do you support them discriminating against white people? Yes or no? Would you please tell me that you support white people?
Do I support discrimination based upon race? I don't really care. I think people should.
Exactly. You don't care when they discriminate against white people. You don't care when they discriminate against white people because you can't say it because you know you're a liar. You know that when you say that being against racism is racist, you're contradicting yourself and you're full of shit and you're a liar.
Well, I do know this, that you are getting a bit intimidated and want to continue interrupting me every time I speak. So, if you're going to be a pussy, then is there really much of a point here?
That's right. Declare victory and leave.
Oh, I'm not leaving. I'm asking you to satchel the fuck up, cowboy, and stop interrupting and be a man.
Be a man. So if I'm a man like you, I'm afraid of black people. I'm afraid of brown people. I'm whining about being killed because black people exist. Is that being a man?
Well, I'm willing to bet a car that I probably have 5 times the amount of black friends that you do.
Oh, black friends. Isn't that the eternal dirge of the racist? I'm not a racist because I have black friends. And what's going to happen to your black friends?
I'm not a racist.
Tell me what's going to happen to your black friends.
The amount of black friends that
Tell me what's going to happen to your black friends.
I can actually call up a black person on the phone right now, and I don't think you can.
I can. But that's not the point.
I think you're a pretentious, self-righteous douchebag.
Okay, that's your right. But I can call a black guy up. And you know what? I want to know what's going to happen to your black friends when you create your white state. Where are they going to live?
Well, they're going to be able to live with anti-whites like you.
No. Where?
Yeah, because you're not going to...
But they can't live with you. Honestly, they're your friends, but they can't live with you.
Well, they're my friends, and my friends, I would imagine, have no problem with white people having a human right to self-preservation.
Oh, so they don't have a problem leaving. They don't have a problem getting away from you. Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
So your black friends, when you have your white state, they can live with you.
Well, they'll be able to live in their country with you guys.
Their country. Oh, they're going to have to leave the country. Your black friends are going to have to leave the country?
No, we're creating our own country.
No, where?
Actually, we will, and we're going to win that. We're going to, because it's a human right, and you guys can violate our human rights. Yeah. Well, at least not for too much longer.
Right, you keep dreaming. So now, where is it going to be? Now you're going to move. You're going to move so far away from your black friends. Why? What's wrong? I mean, what if your black friends want to come live in your white country?
It's like if I got a job in, let's say, Florida, I'd be leaving them. Does that mean I hate them?
That's not the same thing.
Actually, it is. It's the exact same thing.
No, you mean you're going to create a place where they can't live. That's not the same thing. If you get in a job in Idaho, it doesn't mean you're creating a place in Idaho where they can't come.
Well, you guys have created an environment where white people can't have a human right to self-preservation.
That is not true. I'm white and I'm preserving myself. I'm white. I'm preserving myself. I'm not going to exterminate myself. I'm not going to exterminate you. I'm not going to prevent you from having your white life. It doesn't even matter to me if you're racist, okay? That is your right to be racist. It's not your right to take all of your black friends and move them out of the country.
That's, again, you keep making up straw men here. I said it's just like me moving away from my friends. Does that mean I hate everybody if I move away from them? Yes
well, what
or no?
about
Does
the
that mean
black?
I hate them?
That's not what you're talking about. What about the black
Okay, so
people
you
that
don't
are in
answer
your
that.
country? That's a ridiculous question. Look, if you move away from your black friends, that is your right. If you create a country where your black friends can't live, that's a totally different thing. If you do that, you're going to have to move the black people out of that area. There's black people all over the country, my friend. What are you going to do with them?
Oh, I would put them. I mean,
you would put them. Where are you going to put them?
Okay, you keep interrupting. So
where are you going to put them?
Okay, you keep interrupting me. You do realize that you're getting kind of upset, and you continue to interrupt me.
Well, genocide makes me angry.
Except when it happens to white people.
And white nationalism is advocacy of genocide. You're talking about you have all these black friends, but you're going to get them and you're going to put them somewhere. You're going to put your black friends on a truck and send them somewhere? And you're telling me that you're not a racist because you have black friends? You know how many racists in Mississippi have told me they had black friends?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What's the big deal if they come and live with you? Do you have a problem with them because they're black?
I want them to live where they want to live. They can move into my house if they want to. That's not a problem with me as long as they have room, but I don't want them to be forced to live with me.
Do you think they're going to want to live around people that would prefer that they don't live there?
Like their friends, like you?
Well, people like you that say that, you don't want white children to exist and you don't want to create an environment where white children can thrive. And
what are you smoking? What are you smoking? Who said anything about destroying white children? Well, I don't understand what kind of delusion you people are under.
And all their countries need to be flooded while the rest of the world gets to remain homogeneous and monolithic.
Yeah, only I didn't say that. You said that. I said that I think people should go anywhere they want, anywhere in the world.
I have a question.
Okay.
Have you started a campaign to flood Japan with tens of millions of non-Japanese?
I haven't started any campaigns anywhere.
Okay. If I find a campaign, are you going to donate to them?
That's ridiculous. Why would I donate to some campaign to move people around?
Okay, so you're not anti-racist. You're anti-white.
You're not making any sense. Look, there's no campaigns to move people around. There's no campaign to flood America. It's just that we have opportunity here, and people come here because there's opportunity. When
so there's
Mexican
no
farmer,
okay,
now you're interrupting me.
That's the first time I've interrupted you.
No,
so
it
there's
isn't.
no opportunity in Japan.
Japan has a very slow-growing economy right now.
Actually, they have as good an economy as any place in
Europe.
Europe.
It's a big economy, but it's very slow-growing. Now, if they have immigration, I think that's great. I'm not against people immigrating to Japan. And if anyone is stopping someone from immigrating into Japan, I'm against that, okay? I'm not trying to say that everybody should stay out of Japan. You're the one saying that.
Okay, well, listen. You're all excited about something that's already been done. You've already successfully replacing white people in Europe and America. So why don't you put your focus on the genocide of Asians? Since you've already successfully implemented a program of genocide on the white children, why don't you instead? And you're obviously vehement about it, and you're not anti-white. You're anti-racist. So why don't you create a gigantic program to flood Asia with, let's say, Africans?
Because there's nobody creating giant programs to flood anything. That is a conspiracy theory. And you keep lying to me about my own positions. I keep telling you what I think. And you keep telling me that I think something that I don't think. You keep telling me that I'm...
white supremacist.
Yeah, and you are. If you're not a white supremacist, you're doing the work of white supremacists. There is no way you can categorize the Moron mantra any other way, because it posits that white people should have the ability to tell everyone else where to live. Now, when I see When I see signs that say white pride worldwide, I'm not so sure that all you want is some little county in Idaho to put all the white people. And you know what? I don't want to live in that county. I want to live where people are free. Are free to love who they want, live with who they want, speak about what they want, and believe what they want, and where nobody is killed for not being a racist, where nobody is told they can't have sex with black people. Okay, right. That's not for me. I don't want that.
Okay, so you claim to believe in the freedom of association, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if I own a business, let's say I'm black and I own a business and I say no white people allowed, would you accept that?
No.
Okay, so you're against freedom of association then?
I'm against discrimination. Look, law is often a complicated thing. The world is not black and white. Okay? You have rights, but you don't have the right to impose on other people. You can't take away other people's civil rights. You can't discriminate against people based on the way they were born. Black people can't tell you that you can't work somewhere. Okay? I mean, they could do that, but you could sue them for discrimination.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Let's assume I'm everything that you say I am and that I hate black people. And let's say I have a whole lot of power. And I'm going to manipulate African or black countries into opening all their borders and flooding all of their countries. And I'm going to control their media, and I'm going to make them hate themselves. I'm going to promote miscegenation and racial interbreeding. And I'm going to do all these things. And then 90 years later, they're all calculated to become non-black countries. Do you think that's by accident?
I think that is by just economics and demographics. White people are still the third largest ethnicity on the planet. We're still the third largest ethnicity on the planet. And there is no grand conspiracy somewhere to wipe us out. And if there was, it would have to have been created by white people, because white people are in control of all these places you're talking about. Well, now, if you get together and you create some vast conspiracy to eliminate black people in Africa, I would be against that. But that's pure science fiction.
Okay, I'm going to give you another 20 minutes because apparently you need these really long answers. So go ahead. Hello?
I don't need 20 minutes.
Oh, you don't? You don't? Okay.
Okay, but you're never interrupting me, are you?
If I hated black people, I could do that, and you would claim it was all an accident. Okay.
You do hate black people, and that's your right. You have a freedom of thought. You can hate black people if you want.
Well, you can hate white people if you want to.
But I don't.
Well,
I'm not telling you that I'm going to move my white friends to another country.
Again, what I stated is that I would move.
Yeah. But what if there's already black people there? What are you going to do with them?
Well, again, they wouldn't want to live in a place.
Oh, they wouldn't want. You're going to speak for them.
Kind of like I don't want to live in a place where people like you hate me because I'm white and want to genocide my race or whatever.
So you're going to speak for the people in another place and say, you wouldn't want to live with me, so here I come and here you go.
Well,
is that the program?
What you do.
No, I don't.
yeah, you do.
When did I tell you had to move? When did I talk about moving people out of their country so I could create an ethnic enclave? When did I do that?
You've stated that every white country and only white countries should be singled out.
No, I did not. That is a lie. I did not say that. You keep telling me that I said that. I will not let you lie about me to me. I can interrupt you if you're lying about me to me. I never said that. I told you the opposite of that about a dozen times, and I think it's about time you accept that.
Okay. So here it is. Your claim is that you're not anti, and it's just a weird coincidence that all you support is massive non-white immigration into white countries.
That's not true. I told you I support immigration everywhere. everywhere.
The
I told
why-
you I support white people moving to Japan, and you won't do it. You won't tell me that you support white people moving to Japan and having equal rights. You refuse to do that. So
Well,
what are you telling me that I'm anti-white for?
Because they have the right to freedom of association.
Oh,
which you
so
have
they have the
already
right to
stated
discriminate
that
against
you
white
are
people.
against.
Exactly.
You are against freedom of association.
You just came out in support of racism against white people. You're trying to turn it around and say that if I don't support racism against white people, then I'm anti-white?
Well, I mean, all you support is racism against white people.
I told you I didn't. I told you I
didn't.
didn't. When are you going to stop lying to me about me?
Well, when you stop being anti-white. Well, actually, I haven't lied about you at all. Basically, what I've done is
I told you that I
words.
don't support racism against white people. You won't say the same.
I haven't lied about you. Basically, what I've done is I've taken your words and put it, took the underlining subtext of it and put it in a way that makes you feel like a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
and then you want to say I'm lying.
Sure,
that's basically what I've done.
Like a fucking idiot because you keep saying things that contradict you. You keep contradicting yourself. You keep telling me that I am anti-white, but you support racism against white people. That makes me feel so stupid. I can't believe how stupid I feel because you are acting like an anti-white person and telling me that I'm anti-white.
Well, don't worry about it. I'm sure there's probably Asians in Asia that probably want to embrace their own genocide too. They've been properly brainwashed and properly, diseducated and demoralized into embracing their own genocide.
But I'm not a victim of genocide. I'm fine.
Out of, like, what, 5 billion of them over there? I don't know.
Where is this genocide? I mean, we're 79% of the population here. We're 79% of the population. We're richer. We have more power. Where is this genocide? I can have children all I want.
Okay, no problem.
I'm white.
I can answer that. When you deliberately take white countries and turn them into non-white countries and knowing that you're doing that and refusing to stop, that is genocide.
Who did that? God?
Anti-whites.
Anti-whites. Like who?
Like you.
See, you can't name a single conspirator in this conspiracy. I mean, you're saying that I am in control of America and Europe. I'm in control of America and Europe. I'm magically making immigrants come?
Okay, you try to intimidate white children into embracing their genocide. You say that they only have two choices.
Oh, I see. When I go out and talk to little children, I'm intimidating them.
You're interrupting. You say that white children only have two choices. They need to embrace the fact that they're being globally replaced, or they're neo-Nazi skinhead white supremacist KKK members.
No, I didn't.
Choice you give them. Okay, well then give us the third option.
Live with other people in peace.
Okay, that's embracing their genocide. Their global.
No, it's not genocide to live. It's not genocide to live in peace with other people.
Unless it's Aborigines, then it's considered.
They were not expected to live in peace with us. They were replaced from the land forcefully. The land was converted into a form they could not use. They were sent to re-education schools where they were told to speak our language and have our customs. Many thousands or millions of them were shot to death. That is why it was called genocide. It's not because we just came over here and started living beside them in teepees and hunting and fishing. They had no problem with that.
And that's just nonsense.
Yeah, okay, it's nonsense. I'm just talking about basic history here.
What basic history is what? Making up stats and saying millions of Aborigines were murdered?
You mean Native Americans or Aborigines? You talking about Australia or America now?
You were talking about Aborigines.
I was talking about Native Americans.
Okay, but you said Aborigines.
I did?
Yes.
Okay, maybe. Okay, but I meant Native Americans. Now, when Christopher Columbus came over, he wiped out the population of Hispaniola completely.
Okay, but
now that was a genocide.
That does not justify the genocide of white children, though.
No, I didn't say it did because there's no genocide of white children. There's no reason why white children can't live in peace with other types of children, unless you get your way and you tell all those white children, okay, look, you can't have anything to do with anybody that we don't like. You've got to marry a white person. It doesn't matter who you love. It doesn't matter if you love a black person. You can't marry them. And it doesn't matter what you think. You better agree with us or else you're a goner. That's what you are telling white children.
What I would support would be giving every white person in the white country the choice whether or not they want to live there. And also, I think you guys would probably end up forcing white children not to be able to come and continue self-preservation. But I think that they should be given the option in the genocide country that you love and promote. I think they should be given the option, but I don't think you guys would give them that option.
What are you talking about? You think I would do this or do that? I would live in a genocide country. Well, a genocide country is where black people are allowed to live? That's genocide to allow a black person to live in the country?
I do know this.
You're not answering anything.
Everything in your power to try to prevent white people from having self-preservation and self-determination.
You don't know that.
Well, you just said that white people should not be able to have their own country where they can continue doing what the rest of the world has done.
You mean have your own country where black people, your black friends, cannot live. You already live in this country. You already have freedom. You already have the opportunity to reproduce as much as you want. And if you reproduce with a black person, that does not mean that your genes have disappeared. It only means that your children have a suntan, okay? That is the most that's going to happen to you.
But it was genocide when it happened to the Aborigines.
No, that's not what happened to the Aborigines or the Native Americans. The Native Americans were killed in massive numbers. The Native Americans were forced onto reservations. The black people are not killing all of the white people in this country and forcing them into reservations. What are you talking about? You are not the same thing as a Native American, and a black person is not the same thing as a European colonist.
I'm talking about the fact that Australian Aborigines were faced with genocide via massive non-Aborigine immigration and forced assimilation. And that's the exact same way that white children are faced with genocide
today.
But
they're not forcing to assimilate to other cultures or other races.
And then you try to justify the genocide of white children by bringing up Native American history.
No, I didn't. Yes, I was not justifying genocide. I deny that there is any genocide of white people because there isn't. There is no genocide of white people happening. White people are free. They're free to reproduce. This is a country where they live however they want to live. No one is moving you out of this country. You want to take all of your dear black friends and put them on a truck and move them out, or maybe you want to move somewhere else and then move a different set of black people out. Okay, that's your program, not mine. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything.
Okay, do you need another 10 minutes?
You need another 10 minutes.
No, I mean, you keep interrupting me and then going on.
You keep interrupting me.
I don't know why.
You keep interrupting me too, so keep crying, keep whining. Wah, wah, wah. Oh, the black people are killing me. Oh, Nate's interrupting me. You keep interrupting me too, pal. You are a Nazi. And you keep interrupting me and then whining about me interrupting you. And you keep talking about moving people around and then whining about people moving you around. You keep telling me I'm anti-white and you won't even stand up for the rights of white people? You won't come out against racism against white people, and yet I'm the anti-white? Is this just a big exercise in projection?
No, this is a big exercise in showing how cowardly the anti-whites are in refusing us to speak and getting cowardly and wanting to interrupt us. Again,
so when you interrupt me, that's not cowardly.
There you go.
You keep interrupting me too.
No, I don't. You're lying. I'm recording this, and we can go through it.
Yeah, we'll go through it, all right, and everybody will see that you've interrupted me too.
Actually, they might see me interrupting you maybe twice.
Well, I don't allow you to interrupt me. That's the difference.
See, I mean, here we go again. They're going to see that every time I speak, you get upset and you start acting cowardly and want me to be censored, and you wish to just keep on talking. The simple fact is, there was no massive murder of Aborigines. They faced genocide through massive immigration and forced assimilation. It's the same form of genocide that is happening to white children. You admit that you don't support it when it happened to Aborigines, but you do support it when it happens to white children. But then you claim that you aren't anti-white.
That's all lies. There was a massive killing of Aborigines and Native Americans. I don't support any genocide against white people. I don't support racism against white people. You won't make that same statement. You won't tell me that you don't support racism against white people.
Well, I can tell you that anti-racists all agree that there is no such thing as non-whites being racist.
You can't speak for us. You can't
see,
speak
again,
for me.
Again,
You can't speak for me and tell me what I want or what I say.
You keep telling me that what I want to do is genocide black people. And
Well, if you
like
could
that,
come
that I
up
want
with
to
any
kill
other
black
way to make a white state, I would
I've
listen.
never stated anything like that.
Yeah, but there's no other way to create a white state. It must be genocide.
And then you keep on interrupting me. I've been calm. I've been collective. And you keep on interrupting me and telling me that I want to kill everybody who doesn't look like me. You've called me all kinds of names just based on the fact that I don't promote or condone genocide onto any group.
And you've called me all sorts of names, and you've told me that, you want to create a white state. But I'm telling you that if you don't do massive crimes against humanity like ethnic cleansing and genocide, there's no way you can create a white state. And there's no way you can live with your black friends in a white state. Maybe you didn't think about that.
Oh, I've thought about it this way, and I'm sure you've thought about it this way as well. If I'm going to force every black country into massive immigration, and then I'm going to promote miscegenation and force them all to mix, the only group that is going to be eradicated would be black people. That's the only.
But nobody is doing that.
That's the only group that would face genocide.
No, they wouldn't face genocide. If a lot of white people came into Africa and the black people decided to have sex with them, their children would be a little bit lighter. That is the only thing that would happen. Nobody's genes would be destroyed. And nobody is forcing immigration anywhere. We simply say that human beings should be equal and they should be allowed to live where they want. If white people want to live in Africa, let them live in Africa. That's not a threat to black people. If black people want to live in America, let them live in America. That's not a threat to white people.
It's a threat to their culture.
No, it's not.
When you force massive tens of millions of, let's say I was going to pick Botswana and force tens of millions of non-blacks into Botswana, and then tell them that they should all interbreed and create a blended humanity. And won't it be great when we're all one race and things like that? And then pretend it was all an accident when it actually happens.
Yes, but first of all, racial mixing has always happened, and your culture is at least 50% African and Hispanic, Native American. I mean, if you didn't have African Americans and Hispanics and Native Americans, others here, you wouldn't have your culture. You wouldn't have rock and roll. You wouldn't have rap music. You wouldn't have a lot of things. You wouldn't have the blues or jazz. That is your culture.
Are you calling black people primitive and that they would have been
again? You're just putting shit in my mouth.
Own?
You're just making up. You're just making up stuff. You're just making up stuff.
Well, yes or no? Would black people have the ability to create those things without white people?
Would white people have the ability to create those things without black people?
Well, why would we want to create those things?
Because they're awesome.
Not really.
You don't like rock and roll. You don't like the blues.
Definitely. Blues is so basic and so easy.
Really?
Jazz is just an organized mess. I mean, compared to groups like composers, actual composers like Bach or Vivaldi or any of those guys, they wouldn't be able to stand up to them.
So you're calling black people primitive?
Well, you said that without white people, they would have never been able to create those things. So
I didn't say that. I said that when black people and white people got together, they created those things.
That was the subtext
because
behind what you said.
That is a mixture.
You said that diversity or whatever created these things, and without white people and having the ability to be among white people, then they would have never created that.
I didn't say that. I said that without black people here, those things wouldn't exist. Because look, they took the country music and the bluegrass and the African slave music and the Latin American music, and it all mixed together. Now, if you have a black parent and a white parent, it takes a black parent and a white parent to create a mixed race child, just like it takes European music and African music to create mixed music. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but it never would have happened without the mixture.
So I think basically what you're failing to understand is that basically what white people want, normal white people, is we want the ability to have our own culture, our own way of life, and our self-determination without being bothered. It doesn't mean that we want to kill everybody that doesn't look like us. We want to preserve our way just like any other racial group does.
Well, why don't you do it then? Nobody's stopping you.
Actually, if there's no country where we can do this. They've all been
we have
flooded with the
country
third
music
world.
in this country. We have bluegrass still. When they created rock and roll, they didn't wipe out bluegrass.
No, I'm saying culture and racial group.
So, in other words, you had to
really
get
care
rid
about
of other
music.
people in order to have music.
I don't want to. I think everybody should have a right to exist. I think that's where you and I disagree. That every ethnic group, just like any species of animal or subspecies of animal, should have a right to exist. If there's a subspecies of whale going extinct, everybody's worried about it. But when white people are subjected globally into a situation where our culture and our race is going to be destroyed ultimately, then nobody seems to care except people that haven't been properly brainwashed, I suppose.
Well, that's not going to happen. Our culture is not going to disappear. Our skin color is not going to disappear. We got here. We don't need anybody to protect us. We've been here for hundreds of thousands of years, and that was before you came along and decided that people couldn't live together. We have been mixing for the entire history of our species, and here we are. And we're not going anywhere, okay? Our culture is not going to be destroyed just because some other culture comes in and informs it. Things change. We're going to have a different culture 100 years from now, and it doesn't matter what you do. You can't change that fact. You can't make everything static.
But you just agreed that native culture was destroyed.
Yeah, native culture and their way of life, because we changed the land into a thing that they couldn't use. We excluded them, and we made their way of life impossible, and we killed massive numbers of them.
Their culture and their race was annihilated, just like the Aborigines, and it was all done, not so much native, but Aborigine was done through massive immigration and forced assimilation.
Well, I don't know honestly,
about that. If I take a group of people and the whole room is like, let's say, black people, and I flood it with full of white people and tell them all that they're gonna, that they need to have sex and create a melting pot, the only group of people who are going to suffer because of that and have their race put into jeopardy is black people.
No, they wouldn't suffer from that.
That's the only group, and
No.
that's the whole point here.
Most
Only
black
white
people in
countries.
America are part white. Most African Americans have white ancestors. They're not suffering from that. And black people in Africa, nobody's going to force anybody anywhere. But if white people go over there and they have sex with white people, they're going to do it, of their own volition. And it's not going to be a bad thing. If they have a baby, that's not a bad thing. Did you know that when a baby is born, that's the best thing in the world that could ever happen to you? And you're not going to be worried about the color of his skin, and you're not going to be worried about what kind of songs he sings. You're going to be worried about the fact that that is your baby and that is your genes and somebody else's genes. And it's not a bad thing.
Well, that is great, and I think you should have the right to do that. I don't think that white people should be globally forced into a situation that is going to ultimately lead in their destruction.
But we're not going to be destroyed. We are going to be just like everybody else. If every white person in the world decided to have sex with a non-white person, which is highly doubtful, white people wouldn't disappear. Black people wouldn't disappear. We'd just be a little bit different. And that would be, if you did that, that would be your descendant. And it wouldn't matter a bit to you what their color was.
It's so easy to say, that Japan should be flooded with non-Japanese, and it's okay if we destroy your race and your culture because race doesn't matter and we're all the same.
Well,
they wouldn't
culture
buy
changes.
it. Nobody on earth would buy that except a group of people that have been highly brainwashed and highly conditioned.
People in Japan love our culture, and their culture is going to change. They are adopting a lot of our culture right now. And if white people go over there, I don't think that's going to destroy them or their culture. Anybody that goes to Japan will love their culture, and they will be informed by their culture, and they will be informed by our culture. That's how cultures grow and evolve and change over time.
Well, I have a question. You agree that race doesn't matter, right?
Well, technically, race is a made-up concept.
Well, that's a whole, very sociological and non-scientific way of looking at it. But
that's science.
It's not science. But let's go with that. That race doesn't exist. Since you say that race doesn't exist, what is the problem if white people, by some coincidence, they notice that each other are white and they create their own society?
Well, let's just say that 50 white people get together and they create their own commune, okay? And, they live together on a little farm. I don't really see a problem with that if that's what you want to do. If you want to have a white family, or if you want to only have white friends, only associate with white people, that's your right. But if you want to take an entire country and tell people they can't live there because of their skin color, that's a different matter. It's a different matter if black people decide to get together and exclude you and tell you where you can live. I don't agree with that. And most people who are against racism don't agree with that. That's why the Southern Poverty Law Center tracks black hate groups. They don't track black hate groups because they're anti-white. They track black hate groups because they're against racism. It doesn't matter who the racism is against.
Well, black people have a right to self-preservation and self-determination. There's plenty of places where they can go and continue that right if they wish to. Any Black Panther that has a problem with European culture, or whatever, they have a place to go.
Yeah, it's called their home. It's called their home.
The point is that white people have no place to go.
Well, if a black person wants to go to their own home and exclude white people, that's their right. Anything outside of that is oppressing you. If a black person decides that he's got a problem with European culture and you've got to move back to Europe, I think that is not his right. That's not self-determination. That's not self-preservation. That is infringing on your rights.
Actually, it wouldn't be. If my country's is like Japan, let's say, that I create a white country that's like Japan, and I say, like the Japanese say that the Asia is for the Asians, I decide that it's a white country and it's for white people. I'm not discriminating against anybody if I say that they're not allowed in. That's not.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Hold on. Okay, of course you could say it's discrimination, but I'm not violating their right. They have plenty of other places they can go.
That is violating their rights.
No, it's not.
It's not up to you to decide where people live.
If it's my country, then I'm not violating any of their rights.
Yeah, but it's not your country.
There's no human right saying that that everybody has the right to live anywhere. There is no such human right.
Did you graduate from kindergarten?
There's no such human right as saying that. Again,
yes, there is.
If there was a human right on that, then why the hell isn't the UN concerned about it? Because Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and China clearly have immigration policies against non-Asians.
Well, all
places
countries
like
have
Vietnam and
immigration
Cambodia.
policies.
If it's a human right, why isn't it being brought to the United Nations?
All countries have immigration policies, and if they're discriminating against people, that's wrong. But you got to understand that you don't own the country. You don't have the right to tell other people where they can live.
I agree.
If you got out of kindergarten, you understand the concept of sharing. It's perfectly okay for you to share the country with other people because, look, this is all of our country. Everybody that was born here, this is our country. And if somebody wants to come here and live by our laws and contribute to our society, it should be their country too. And if white people want to go to Asia, Asia is not for Asians. Africa's not for Africans. It's for everybody.
That's not what the Asians say.
Well, I don't care about that, okay? And you can't say all the Asians like that. That's a generalization. Now, there's racists everywhere. I'm sure there's people in Asia that are racist. So what? There's a lot of people in Asia that aren't racist, and they don't have any problem with you going there. They don't have a problem with you going to Asia and living unless they're just xenophobic. And xenophobia is not a good thing.
Well, xenophobic is just a new word to describe, anybody
just another
that doesn't
made-up
embrace
thing,
genocide at the end of the day.
No, it's not. Actually, it means you're afraid of other cultures.
Xenophobic came about, I would imagine, like all these other words like homophobic, racist. It all came from a brainwashing campaign.
So you're against homosexuals too. So it's okay to hate homosexuals?
No, again, I think the only person that has a problem with freedom of association is somebody like you.
I'm not talking about freedom of association. I said, do you hate gay people?
Do I hate gay people? I don't.
Do
hate
you
anybody.
think it's okay to hate gay people? That's what homophobia means. It means you don't like gay people.
I think it's pretty obvious that I don't hate anybody.
No, it's not obvious at all. You're telling me that you have a lot of black friends, but you want to go away from those people. You want to live in your own country. You want to claim something all for yourself and for anybody who's just like you, and you want to exclude all of your black friends. Now, there's no reason why you would want to do that unless you hate them, because look, they're not destroying your culture. They're not getting into your bed and having sex with you against your will. They're not controlling what your children look like. They're not controlling what kind of songs you sing. If you don't hate them, there's no reason to leave them behind and tell them they can't live there.
So if I think that white people have a right to self-preservation and self-determination, then that means I hate everybody who's non-white?
If white people can't preserve themselves, how did you get here? If white people are in such danger from mixing and from multiculturalism, which is the rule down through history, how are we here?
Well, it's not been the rule.
It is the rule.
The United States was 91% white in the 60s, and then it was decided that America was going to be a melting pot. And then
it was almost all Native American, and then it was almost all immigrants, and they came from all sorts of places. They came from China,
Europe.
China.
America was created by Europe for Europeans. That's the whole reason it was created.
No, it was not created as an ethnic state. It was created as a republic.
Well, they put on there for our what was the exact words? Our posterity, which means
our posterity, which is everybody.
And they were all European.
No, they weren't.
So that means. For white people is what.
So it was for the posterity of Abraham. Of the founding fathers, and only the founding fathers, just the descendants of the founding fathers.
Oh no, the other white people at that time.
They never mentioned white
at that time. United States. If you look at the census from 1780, it was 99% white.
But they never said white people in the Constitution. They never said that it was just for white people. They said our posterity, meaning the posterity of American citizens. Right. Anybody can be an American citizen. If they didn't want non-white people to be American citizens, they would have said so. If it wasn't for the posterity of non-white Americans, they would have said so. They never mentioned race.
For ourselves and our posterity.
And you interpret that. You interpret that as being white people, but that is not necessary at all. They never mentioned white people.
If a group of Mongolians and Chinese and Japanese and Taiwanese all created a country and they said, for ourselves and our posterity, they don't mean Hispanics, they don't mean black people, they don't mean white people, they mean Asian people.
Well, we're not talking about Mongolia here. We're talking about America, and America has been multiracial since the very beginning.
No, it hasn't. It's been based.
Yes, it has.
If you look at the United States Census, it was in 1780, which I believe was the first one. It's 99%, almost 100% white.
And that was the Eastern Seaboard, wasn't it?
Well,
that was a
America.
tiny country. That was not the America that we have today. That was the Eastern Seaboard. That was not half of Mexico, which we conquered. We conquered half of Mexico. And they never said, yeah, that's the truth. And now they never said anywhere that it was for white people. They said our posterity, but you can interpret that as being white people. I interpret that as being Americans. Well, any American.
Again, any sane person, if Asians had done the same and they said for ourselves and our posterity, any sane person would say that that country is for the Asian people.
Any sane person would agree with racism, in other words, is what you're saying. If a Chinese person says something, it has to be only for Chinese people.
If he says for myself and my posterity, yes.
So, in other words, only for the posterity of the person writing the document. Any sane person would say that if someone wrote a document and said, for me and my posterity, that America is only for the people who signed that document and their descendants, not for you.
If a group of people are representing a culture that is almost 100% monolithic and homogeneous, and they say for ourselves and our posterity, yes, that's who they're talking about.
Almost 100%. So they were excluding the people who weren't white.
They were excluding, they were talking about Americans.
Americans who are not an ethnicity. America is not an ethnicity. It is a country. And they founded a country, not an ethnic state. They never mentioned race in the Constitution. They said all men are created equal with the same rights. That means you don't have the right to tell other people they can't be Americans.
They didn't mention race because they didn't realize that in the 1960s our country was going to be flooded with the third world. They would have advised against that.
So how do you know what they were thinking and what they meant? How do you know that they didn't?
Because they used the words ourselves and our posterity.
Right. So it had to be only for them. Only for the people who signed the document and their children.
No, for the people, this is the first fucking paragraph of the United States Constitution.
And you're interpreting it in a very narrow way that fits your purposes.
Well, you're fitting it in a very retardedly liberal way that takes every definition and says it's all subjective.
Subjective? You're the one who's making it subjective. You're telling me that it's not just for the founders of the country, but for all white people, even though they never said that. They never specified anything about race. You're making it very subjective. I'm just telling you that posterity can mean anything. It could mean the descendants of all Americans. You want it to only be for white people. So why do you want to exclude black children and Asian children and Mexican children? What crime did those children commit that makes them worthy of exile from the country of their birth?
The only people that are singling anybody out here and saying you can't do this is you. You're saying that white people have to be singled out. White children need to be singled out and basically targeted for genocide, and that they have no right to preserve their culture.
Look, I have come out
and no right to defend themselves and say, you know what? Enough is enough. We want to create our own country. It's not going to be gigantic. We're just going to create our own country, and we're going to do what the rest of the world is doing.
No, I came out in defense of the rights of white people not to be discriminated against, and you won't do that. You won't come out against discrimination against white people. Now, I believe that white people have a right to defend themselves, but defending yourself is not making an ethnic state. Nobody is attacking you. Nobody's telling you that you can't live.
That's defense against a program of genocide. Absolutely.
But genocide is not living in peace with other people as equals. That's not genocide. Genocide is what happened to the Jews in the Holocaust. Genocide is a very real thing. It's not just when you have to live with people you don't like.
Well, first off, we don't live in peace. With all these different cultures together. Diversity is a source of conflict everywhere. Everywhere you go, whether even religious conflict, let alone racial conflict. I was forced bused into a school that was predominantly black when I was just really young, and all the kids from my elementary too, which were all white, were forced there, and everybody segregated themselves. There was conflict all the time based on race, and even as adults, this whole racial thing exists. So there is gigantic conflict. Diversity is not a strength. It's a complete lie to say it is a strength.
So you think that's the way it should have been? You think there should have been conflict between you and the black kids?
Well, there wasn't any conflict between me and them, but it was all over. I avoided conflict. That's just the way I was back then. Whether or not I want it all to work out doesn't really matter. It's the way it is.
Well, look, conflict is a constant down through history. Human beings have a tendency to fight each other. It has nothing to do with diversity or skin color or religion. Those are all excuses. When you have people that need something and they both want it, they're going to fight. It doesn't matter who they are. If there's a finite number of resources and people need those resources, they fight. Or if they have leaders that are unscrupulous, they lead them to fight other people. I mean, it makes no difference about race or anything like that. And also, if people are doing well, they have no problem living with other people. There's 7 million Muslims in this country, and they're not fighting you. But in the Middle East, they might. And right, it's not because they're Muslims. It's not because they're Muslims. It's because here the conditions are right for living in peace. There, it's destroyed, and people are desperate.
Well, it's not much of a situation for peace here. If you look at Los Angeles, the Hispanics and black people do not get along. There's situations where Hispanics are coming into homes of black people and kicking them out and saying, you don't live here anymore because you're black, you're not Hispanic. And that's just the way it's going.
Well, that's the poverty. Do rich black people and rich Hispanic people go into each other's homes and kick them out? No.
Where do you get that poverty is somehow correlated to that?
Well, that's a pretty well-known thing. I mean, poverty is why people fight. Poverty makes people want to fight. I mean, if people are rich, they don't fight. They might make other people fight if they're politicians, but rich people don't have any reason to fight. Poor people fight. And they find all kinds of excuses to fight. That has nothing to do with it. If you are fighting somebody, you have a real reason, not some bullshit reason.
Okay. Again, the whole point is this. Only white countries have been forced into massive immigration. Only white children are brainwashed into thinking that if they don't embrace being replaced globally, then they're neo-Nazis. All we think you should have the right to do, at least, I can't say we, I only speak for myself, and I know you're going to pretend that I represent Bug Swarm or whoever.
Well, you've spoken about them a lot.
Actually, I haven't. I haven't really brought up bugs at all.
You mentioned them 3 or 4 times.
I mentioned them at the beginning because you were saying that Bob Whitaker was a neo-Nazi, and he's
he is,
and he's not. But
anyway. That would certainly be misrepresentative of what I've heard him, what I've seen of his writings. I mean, he's mentioned Nazism quite a bit. What I've seen.
If he's a Nazi, I don't think he would have a problem just saying that he's a Nazi.
Well, he didn't. He didn't have a problem with it. He said, keep the swastikas at home for now because Nazism is very unpopular. Don't tell people that you hate Jews. Keep it on the down low. That's what he said.
You can't criticize certain groups. The only people you're allowed to criticize in America is the white heterosexual Christian male.
Well, you shouldn't demonize Jews, should you?
In America, it's the only thing that's sanctioned, and it was all done intentionally.
No, I mean, I don't criticize people for being white.
You don't see Asians in Asia walking around thinking that if they don't hate themselves and if they don't want to replace themselves, it means they're horrible people.
You haven't been replaced.
Nowhere.
You haven't been replaced. You're still here. It doesn't matter how many other people are here. You're still here.
If you look at Western Europe, and I named the countries earlier, they're all calculated to become non-white. That
No,
is
they're not.
genocide. You can't say, listen, I don't like the racial makeup of this country. I'm going to turn it into a white country. You say that you don't want people to have white countries.
Well,
So,
there are no white countries. Countries are not owned by skin color.
but you don't mind if white countries are turned into non-white. Well, I guess your argument is that we have to all pretend that there's no such thing as a white country, so that way we can, we have to have this land of make-believe so we can pretend that we're not practicing genocide against white people.
Look, if we don't happen to be the majority in a particular country, that's not a catastrophe. That just is demographics. Look, in Europe, the last time I was in Europe, they just did a demographic study, and it said that the birth rates of the immigrants were falling very dramatically, and the immigration was falling dramatically, and they didn't think that the ratio is going to change very much in the foreseeable future. They don't calculate that the North African immigrants are going to outnumber whites, and if they did, those countries would still be democratic countries. And those African people, those North Africans and Middle Easterners, aren't savages. They're not going to tear down everything. They want to live in that society, go shopping just like everybody else. When I was there, I saw them shopping. I didn't see anybody tearing down anything. It wasn't like they were replacing anybody. They were just adding themselves to the mix. And all the white people were still there, just like you. You were in a majority black school, and you're still here. And if there was segregation, which of course there was, and fighting, that's not a good thing. And I don't think you think that's a good thing. So why is that what you're promoting?
What I'm promoting is the human right that all other racial groups are rewarded.
Yeah, but they don't have that right. Asians don't have a right to exclude you. Africans don't have a right to tell you where to live.
Yeah, actually, they believe that they do, and
Some
I
of them
support
do.
that right.
Okay,
actually.
so you support racism against white people, meaning that
That's
you are
not
anti-white.
racism. That's just discrimination.
That is racism and discrimination.
No, racism was defined and created to define white superiority and the belief that whites are a superior race, and that's the way it's applied in common usage today. Nobody calls Asia, Asian supremacists for not practicing diversity, and nobody says it about Africa.
Yeah, but they do. I mean, the Southern Poverty Law Center, like I said, tracks black hate groups. They track Jewish hate groups. They're not afraid to track Jewish hate groups because of the Holocaust. They are ready to call Jews racist and black people racist. That means that they're using that word in a way that you say they can't use it.
I think Southern Poverty Law Center is a great representation that anti-racist really means anti-white.
Because they track black hate groups?
They might say that a group that says kill white babies is a hate group or whatever, and they call it hate groups. They don't call them racist groups. They call them hate groups.
Exactly.
But the vast majority of them are white people, and the vast majority of them are nonviolent and not really hateful groups. They just don't hate white people, and that seems to be the qualification today. If I create a group and I don't hate white people, then I'm at like a hate group or something.
That's ridiculous. So, I mean, there's nobody
that. True.
But there's a lot of groups that aren't about race. I mean, that just means that if you create any association and it's not about race, that somebody's going to call that racist, which isn't true. I mean, the Southern Poverty Law Center calls white racist groups hate groups. They call black racist groups hate groups. Many people have called black people racist, like Louis Farrakhan, for instance. He's a well-known racist. Everybody knows he's a racist. So, I mean, again, when you say that this word is just made up to attack white people, that's not true. It's just the fact that we are the vast majority in this country.
Look up the origin of the word racist. That's the whole reason it was created.
Yeah, no, that's not true. I mean, look, we were the dominant group in this country, and we have been oppressing other groups. So, yeah, I mean, when they talked about racism in the past, they were talking about us because we had all the power, and we were oppressing other racial groups because of that. So we were the ones they were talking about. Just
to give you an example, though, of how stupid the SPLC is, they put Jared Taylor on there. The guy never he talks about genetic and race and things like that. He never really promotes an idea of who is superior and who is not. But he's labeled as a hate monger. It's just a joke. He's put on there for one simple fact: he doesn't hate white people.
Well, you could disagree with that if you want, but I don't know why they called him an extremist or whatever they called him, but I can tell you that they tracked Wade Michael Page for a long time, and they called him an extremist. And look, he just killed 6 Sikhs because he thought they were Muslim. So apparently they had it right in that instance.
Actually, I don't know why people keep saying he thought they were Muslim.
Because people often mistake Sikhs for Muslims, and they often attack Muslims. Well, it doesn't really matter. If he killed Sikhs because they were Sikhs, it's just as bad as if he killed them because they thought they were Muslims. That's just an incidental part of the story. But they were tracking him. They were tracking Wade Michael Page, and Wade Michael Page went out and murdered a bunch of people. And, look, the reason why he really did it was because Wells Fargo foreclosed on his home, and his girlfriend left him, and he went nuts. Okay, but his views about racial superiority informed his breakdown. So if he hadn't been a white supremacist, he wouldn't have necessarily targeted non-white people and tried to kill them. Maybe he would have targeted Wells Fargo.
Well, let me ask you this. If you think that these kind of things could be prevented by granting white children their human right to self-preservation and self-determination, would you be in favor of it?
You don't have a right to exclude other people, and your self-determination and self-preservation is not dependent on excluding other ethnic groups. Your self-determination is your right to vote, your right to equal citizenship. Your self-preservation is your right to live and reproduce. And nobody is threatening any of those things except maybe for the rich who are trying to take away your vote and your power. Other than that, nobody is attacking you.
You say that white people should be excluded from having the right to patrol their borders and have immigration policies that create homogeneity or monolithic society, which you say is okay for other groups. So
no, I
think it's pretty obvious that. Oh, okay. You say it isn't okay for other groups, but you're going to concentrate on white people and forcing it only onto white people.
No, I don't live in Japan, okay? If I lived in Japan,
right,
then I would definitely come out against Japanese racists, but I don't know anything about them. And, you don't have a right to exclude other people and tell them where they can live. And they don't have a right to exclude you. And that exclusion is not going to help you. Including other people and other cultures and other ethnicities is not going to hurt you.
Okay, so it's just a weird coincidence that you don't try to enforce it on the Asians or the black people.
I don't try to enforce it on anybody.
It's a weird coincidence that you only try to enforce it on the white people.
I don't have any power to enforce anything on anybody. I've never tried to change U.S. foreign policy or U.S. immigration policy.
Well, of course not.
I'm not in the government.
Well, of course not. But your whole focus, and it's just a weird coincidence that all of your focus is directed on to telling white kids that they have to embrace their what you have a different name for it, but I'll call it genocide, or they are neo-Nazi skinheads.
Well,
it's just a coincidence that you don't say that and try to portray that message out to Asian people.
Well, the neo-Nazi skinheads have had a big resurgence lately, and that's a pretty well-known fact. And look, my major focus is Palestinian rights. I'm a big advocate of Palestinian rights and against the ethnic state of Israel. That's what I focus most of my attention on. And I tell Jews that they shouldn't be racist against Palestinians. And I tell Palestinians that they shouldn't be racist against European Jews. That when they get their Palestinian state, they cannot ethnically cleanse Israeli Jews. They must live as equals. That is the main focus. If I oppose racism, then, the bug swarm has come to me and told me that I'm bad for opposing racism. And they've told me that I'm bad because I'm anti-white, which is not true. They have been the ones that are on the offensive, not me. I'm merely standing up for equality and justice.
Well, then How about you put out videos, maybe learn Japanese or Mandarin or something, and tell them that they need to start flooding their country with non-Asians?
Well, if people decide to go to Japan, I think they should allow them to do that.
Well, then learn Mandarin, or you could probably listen to a translator or something. You could translate it and put out a video saying that Asians need to embrace their. What word do you have for it again? You say it's not genocide. What word do you call it?
Living together in peace as equals.
Okay.
Well, look, I mean, a lot of Zionists have told me that I need to make videos condemning Saudi Arabia because I condemn Israel for being an ethnic state. And I have made statements against Saudi Arabia once and again. But, I can tell you my positions. I can tell you what I think. I don't have to go and make videos about every subject in the world just because you think I should. Well, I told you that I'm against Asians excluding other people or Africans excluding other people. And you know what? Africa and Asia, as a rule, does have a lot of immigration. The UAE is 71% immigrants.
Okay, well, is it a weird coincidence, would you agree, that all anti-racists, they never concentrate on taking these other countries, non-white countries, and forcing them into a situation where their culture or race could be destroyed with massive immigration, but all of the focus is put onto white people and only white people? Do you understand why people are saying that anti-racist is a code word for anti-white?
I understand that many people in America today are afraid of the future. They are financially insecure. They are becoming less and less empowered. They know that their government and their media is not responding to them. They are feeling agitated, and it's quite expected for people to become angry and to possibly misdirect their anger and to think that the reason why their lives are deteriorating is all these other people. But that's not true. If you don't have a job, it's not because of non-white people. It's because of the policies of your government and the fact that your government has been captured by the super rich and no longer represents you. If your government represents you, then you can live in peace with whoever might be there. And, if people who are against racism don't talk about Bangladesh, for instance, it's probably because they don't live in Bangladesh and they don't know anything about it. If we lived in Bangladesh, we would be telling Bangladesh to be fair to all people. What we say is that racism is wrong, and it doesn't matter what the race of the racist is. Everybody should have equal rights and be able to live where they want.
Okay, the whole point is this. The fact that you admit that nobody wants to talk about Asia or Asians or Africans, and that the focus is entirely onto white people.
No.
It pretty much.
I don't think that's true.
But it is. I mean, come on. If I go to Google News right now and I type in racist, every single thing that I find up there is going to be about white people. Everybody knows that when the term racist is thrown out there, it's about a white person.
Well, if you change your proxy to be Asia, if you change your proxy to be Saudi Arabia, then you're going to get all the search results from Saudi Arabia, and you would probably see racism against whoever happens to live there.
Nobody else is worried about racism because they're all monolithic and homogeneous.
Yeah, but that's not true. Every country has minorities. Even Japan has minorities. They have a sizable Korean community in Japan.
There's no concern about racism or anything like that.
But how do you know that?
Nobody gives a shit.
How do you know that? How do you know that nobody in Japan is talking about racism? Go to Japan.
Because they're not flooding themselves with tens of millions of people, and there's no massive movement to flood their countries with tens of millions of non-Japanese.
Well, nobody's flooding us. People come here of their own volition because they need the opportunities. Nobody is going to Mexican villages and pulling them out of their villages and forcing them to come here. They come here because they need to feed their children. And, if we want to tolerate those people, It's not because we hate our country or our culture. It's because we recognize that if somebody needs a job, they should be able to get one. And that's not a problem for you. That's not a problem for me. I have a small business, and a lot of my customers are immigrants. And that doesn't hurt me. Their money doesn't hurt me.
Well, so is that the reason you promote this, is because of your business?
Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But, when you get rid of immigrants, the economy always suffers. Every state that has driven out the immigrants has had a downturn in their economy because that's just less people to work, less people to spend.
Okay, but that does not justify anything. That does not justify flooding your country with tens of millions of people and promoting things with Hollywood and entertainment industry and newspapers, journalists, media, and everything under the sun to that they all need to mix together, and if they don't like it, then they're neo-Nazis.
Well, you don't have to mix.
That.
You don't have to mix. Nobody's telling you have to marry a black person. Are they? Are they demonizing you for marrying a white person?
Actually, if I go out today and I tell everybody that I am for the self-preservation of white people, and that I think white people should have the right that all the other groups have, there's a good chance that I will get fired. People will threaten me. I will be intimidated. If I was in Europe, I'd end up in jail. So yes, people are forcing it.
Well, they're not forcing you to marry a black person. You are free to marry a white person, have white children. Nobody's against that. What we say is if a white person loves a black person, they should be free to marry them. And that's not bad. It's not bad to love somebody.
I agree. However, I take it a step further and I say that white children should not be forced into a situation where their entire racial group is at jeopardy because their educational system, their media, their Hollywood, and everything under the sun that they listen to and take as gospel is telling them that they need to do these things.
Well, they don't need to be violent against other people or to hate other people because of their race. That's all they're being told. That's all they're being told. They're not saying that you can't exist as a white person. They're not telling them that you have to, give up your identity. They're saying don't hate people,
yes,
don't hurt people.
You have to give up your identity.
No, they don't. I've never seen that message. I've never seen the message that you can't be white.
Again, if I go out and I speak out against what is happening, and I point out the fact that only white countries are being flooded with the third world and forced assimilated, if I bring that up, I'll get fired.
Well, first of all, that's not true. And second, that message is hateful.
Well, can you tell me?
The subtext of that message is that we have to separate ourselves and start telling other people where they can or can't live. That's why they find it offensive.
It's not hateful. It's not. Again, you're equating me not hating white people as to me hating everyone who's non-white. You would never say that about a black person. If a black person says, if a black person in Africa was, having their countries flooded with tens of millions of non-blacks and he didn't like it, and he was forced into a situation where he'd lose his job if he spoke out about it, you wouldn't call him names.
Well, if a black person said those things, I would call him a racist.
You would call you so. Again,
I mean, that's what he would be.
It comes down to the simple reality that if white children do not embrace their genocide or their replacement, whatever you want to call it, then they're neo-Nazi, skinhead, white supremacists.
Well,
so
you can't ignore the fact that these people
exist.
You can't ignore the existence of the American Nazi Party, the skinheads, the KKK. I mean, these people exist. This is not something I made up.
Well, as long as you are going to keep people like you are going to keep on conveying this idea that white people need to hate themselves or they're neo-Nazis, then you can expect groups like neo-Nazis to have a jump in party members.
But I didn't say anybody had to hate themselves. It's not hating yourself to live in peace with other people. It's not hating yourself. I mean, it's just being fair. Nobody's attacking you.
If you can't about fairness, and you see that Asia has not been flooded with the third world, and that they're not in threat of their culture and their race being all blended out of existence. Hold on. It's it's to say that they have the right to exist, and that black people have a right to exist, and that they have the right not to have their countries flooded, and then to exclude white people and single out white people. You don't really care about racism, and you don't care about equality.
That's not what I'm saying. Nobody is flooding anywhere. Okay, if we have a lot of immigrants,
yes.
If we have a lot of immigrants, it's because of our economy, and it's because of the economy of the surrounding countries. If Japan had the same circumstances as us, they would have the same immigration. If they had the same countries bordering them and they had the same economy, they would have the same immigration, and that would be fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Our culture is not disappearing. Our culture has been informed by Mexicans, Hispanics, African Americans since the very beginning. Italians, Irish, I mean, you name it. We have had just about everything, and that's where our culture comes from. And, maybe you don't appreciate rock and roll or blues or jazz. Okay, that's fine. But I do, and that is part of our culture. And if we didn't have multiculturalism, that wouldn't exist. And pure ethnic states have never really existed. I mean, this is a fiction. There's always different people moving. People move around all over the place, and they have since the beginning of time, and we've been blended into existence. So how can we be blended out? I mean, if we can't exist with other people, how did we get here? And if our skin color changes, or if our culture changes, what's the big deal? It's not going to be the end of the human race if we're a little bit different. 100 years from now, you're not going to recognize anything that's here. Of course, you'll be dead. But 100 years from now, everything's going to be different. So what? Why can't you just live and be happy and not hate other people and not tell other people where they can live, not see other people as a threat? Because there are threats. There are big threats, but they're not these ethnic minorities.
Okay. I just got back from the bathroom. I could tell you were going to go on a filibuster there. If it's not being forced, then why do you not get to vote on immigration? You're saying we're not being flooded, yet all the demographics show from 1965, and you can look it up, the demographic trends of 1900 to 2000, that there's been tens and tens of millions, probably close to 100, just within America in the last 30 years. You're saying we're not being flooded. The demographics say otherwise. And you can make up excuses as to why it's happening, but to say that we're not being flooded is just a lie.
Well, that's, when a lot of people come in, that's not being flooded. That is just the fact that a lot of people come in, because we have jobs for those people. Now, you're telling me that we can't vote against immigration, but in New Mexico, I believe it was, or maybe it was Arizona, they've had this big campaign against immigrants. And Sheriff Joe Arpaio was voted in so he could oppress and get rid of the illegal immigrants. And, they put in all kinds of measures to make immigration tougher. They built a huge wall along the border. We have Border Patrol. We have people trying to stop immigration. I mean, the government is not giving Mexicans money to come into America and trying to help them. But
actually,
it just
they are. They're saying,
oh, so that's the Border Patrol.
If you come here, we're going to pay for your health care. We're going to pay for your children's immigration, or for your children's education, and whatever the hell you want. We're going to feed them. We're going to do everything. Just keep coming.
And working. Keep coming and working in our economy and contributing and paying taxes.
Immigrants
pay taxes.
They don't even have to work.
What they do.
Just bring their kids here, and their kids have a complete free ride.
But they do work. Immigrants work. They work hard. They have a lower level of criminality. They do pay taxes. They, and they have, a right to have some sort of care when they're about to die. If their child needs an education, then that child should be educated. That's not a big deal.
If they break their leg and go to the emergency room, they're not paying jack shit, whether or not they're dying
neither would
or
you.
not.
Neither would you. That's just the way the system works. If you don't have the money, you go to the emergency room. And you know what? In every other industrialized country in the Western world, they have free health care. And they pay about the same taxes that we pay here. I know because I've talked to some of those people. And they don't have a problem with that. And, you know, what's wrong with treating a child when they're sick? What's wrong with healing somebody if they have a broken leg?
Well, I think that's the ultimate question. When white people are being forced into a program where their race is at risk, what is the big problem with trying to fix it and giving white people just their own little part of the country where they can continue without being forced into a massive brainwashing campaign in a society that tells them they have to blend themselves out of existence or they're neo-Nazis?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because most of the people saying that are neo-Nazis, number one. And secondly, if you try to do that, you're infringing on other people's rights, and it won't stop there. When people have the signs that say white pride worldwide, they mean it. They don't mean that they're going to limit themselves to one little place and let everybody else go nuts. They are going to want to take over everything. And look,
what do you think about La Raza?
Well, it may be a racist organization. I don't know much about them.
Would you have a problem if the president came and spoke at a neo-Nazi movement?
Well, if the president came to speak to neo-Nazis and tried to convince them to be peaceful and to live with other people in peace, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Well, what if he did what Barack Obama did with La Raza and told them that they're right?
Well, look, I don't know much about La Raza, but I can tell you one thing, and that's that I don't support Barack Obama. Okay, I'm not here to be an apologist for Barack Obama. I disagree with him on many, many things, but you know, if La Raza is following a program of creating an ethnic state and excluding white people, that's wrong. They can't do that.
Well, the whole world has done that.
Well, I mean, you know, if somebody did that in some other part of the world and it was wrong, does that mean that you should do it?
Well, who says it's wrong other than you? The whole world, 90-some% of the world agree with me and not you.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that people support racism in other countries. I've never heard anybody that's against racism make a distinction and say that racism is okay in other countries. I've never heard that.
Well, the simple fact that China has not opened their borders to Africa and said, listen, you guys need to come here under the boatload, it's pretty much a sign that that they want to keep their country for themselves.
No country does that. We don't do that with Mexico.
Sure.
We don't tell Mexicans to bring them here by the boatload.
What? What do you think?
What do you think the fence on the border is for?
It's saying that we're not going to punish you if you come here illegally, and we're going to give you health care. We're going to pay for your kids to have an education. We actually create television programs like Dora the Explorer to teach our children to embrace the fact that they're going to be replaced by Hispanics. And pretend it was all an accident and that we're not welcoming them to our country. I mean,
you mean the fence on the border is there to welcome them?
We can't be all fluffy bunny rabbit and rainbows and pretend this shit is not happening.
Well, you know, to say that we're welcoming Mexicans because we have a huge fence on the border, because we allow, you know, many of them to die on the way here, you know, that's just not true. I mean, if they come here and they have access to the social programs that we do, that's just because they haven't been caught and sent out of the country. You know, that's the only reason. And, you know, if they come to this country, it's not a problem. If they come to this country,
to catch them and kick them out. If there's any massive program to kick them out, all these leftists and liberals are going to start screaming that it's racist.
Well, Obama,
people like you are going to say that it's all racist because we're doing something that the rest of the world does. Again,
how does that make it not racist if the rest of the world does it?
What? Well, it's racist because it's white people doing it. So it's not racist when other groups do it.
But I didn't say that.
Well, of course you're not going to say it like that.
Because I don't believe that.
All of your actions pretty much show that you're singling out white people and that you're not really anti-racist. Even if you were, all of your actions show that you're just anti-white.
You don't know that. You don't know what my actions are.
No,
and I'm trying to tell you what I think. I'm trying to tell you that I told Palestinians not to be racist against white Jews. So how is that singling out white people? I don't understand that.
If I go to your YouTube profile, every single thing where you're talking about race is going to be dealing with white people, singling out white people, and saying that only white people basically need to embrace this. And you're never going to talk about how Asia hasn't practiced it and how they're evil. You're only going to say white people, white people, white people.
I never said white people are evil. I said that racism is wrong. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you will see me talking about racism of all sorts. Because, I'm against racism against white people. I'm against racism against Jews by Palestinians. These are the issues that I care about and I've spoken about. I might not speak about every issue in the world, but that doesn't mean you can tell me what I think about that issue. Okay. So, and Barack Obama, by the way, has deported more Mexican illegal immigrants than any other president in history. He's deported over 1 million people. So you can't really say that Barack Obama is trying to bring Mexicans in.
Well, the president has very little to do with immigration policies.
Yes, but he runs the agencies, though. He is responsible. If he wanted, he's the one that told him to stop deporting people because Mexican immigrants were protesting. And that's why he told them to stop the deportations. He had that power to do that. Before that, he was deporting more people than any other president in history.
Well, again, he has never put out any executive order telling them that they need to deport people, and no other president has
said
that
How
they
do you
can
know
or
that?
cannot.
How do you know that? I mean, how do you know he never did that? You think Barack Obama wasn't in charge?
The only thing dealing with immigration that he's put out there was the DREAM Act. That was basically the only executive order dealing with immigration.
That was a proposed legislation, not an executive order. That was proposed legislation. They went nowhere.
Actually, I'm pretty sure it was an executive order.
No, it was not.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't think I am, though.
No.
Yeah.
The DREAM Act didn't pass, The DREAM Act didn't pass.
The simple fact is they could slow down immigration. I mean, look at our unemployment rate right now and in Europe. And still, they refuse to stop massive immigration. Even if it's Polish immigration into the United Kingdom, they refuse to stop all of it, even though they have a skyrocketing unemployment rate everywhere in Western civilization. They know that they're deliberately putting white children into a situation of genocide, and they refuse to stop it. They refuse to allow anyone to vote.
Yeah, but that's not because of immigration. It's not because of immigration that there's not enough jobs. I mean, that's a totally separate issue.
Well, I agree that it's a separate issue, but you can only expect the unemployment rate to go up because of that, and because of that, and they know there's not enough jobs. We can say that it's not because of jobs that they're coming here.
Those jobs that they're doing here are menial labor.
Genocide. That's the only reason they're coming here is because it's a deliberate program of genocide. And you mentioned earlier.
No. Look. They come here because they need a job, and they're doing menial labor most of the time. I mean, you don't want to go and mow people's lawns, and if you did, you could do that. Mexican immigrants are not going to stop you from scrubbing toilets and mowing yards. That's what most of them are doing. They're doing construction labor, mowing yards, these menial labor jobs. And that's not stopping you from getting employed. If anything, it's boosting the economy.
You brought up the fact that you believe there's a conspiracy and that the rich control everything, right? This would only go along with that. That they are looking for white genocide would only go along with what your conspiracy is, that it's elite, rich people controlling it. They want a more malleable workforce. They want people that are going to work cheaper. So they are allowing white countries to be flooded with the third world.
Yeah, but they don't need that, though. I mean, they can get factory workers in Asia or anywhere in the world, China. I mean, that's the reason why the wages and the workforce is being decimated is because of globalization. They can go to countries that brutally crush unions and brutally crush the people, like the Chinese communists, for instance, and get cheap labor. It's not the Mexicans coming over here because, look, I mean, if you want to get a job that is in any degree skilled, you can do that. I mean, the Mexicans are not really competing for those jobs. They're competing for menial labor, and most Americans don't want to do those jobs and don't have to do those jobs.
Well, the other part is that if people are going to be given an opportunity to hire, a cheaper workforce, a lot of people will take that. So
yeah, but that's internationalization. That's the fall of the Bretton Woods economic system.
None of this justifies white countries being singled out. And I know that you said that white countries haven't been singled out, but you can't really name any non-white country that is calculated to have their original population replaced.
Well, the UAE.
They're going to become the minority. You can't name any non-white country where that's happening.
The UAE.
But I can name several white countries where that is happening.
The UAE is 71% immigrants right now. And I'm sure that there are other countries. I mean, I'm not an expert of the populations of every country on earth, but the UAE is 71% immigrants. They have already got a larger non-immigrant population, and they're not being replaced. Those people are still there. They're still the native population, and UAE is employing all those immigrants because they're super rich.
I'm not familiar with United Arab Emirates. I'm not sure how long ago it was established or who established it. It's a small country. It's very insignificant. I know it's an international country, and I'm pretty sure it's probably been developed in the last few decades. So
it's an Arab country. It was created, right after World War I, when we created most Arab countries, and they have a lot of immigrants. I mean, and there's a lot of population displacements all over the world.
Okay,
and there's lots of.
Then name some other ones.
Look, I told you I don't know the populations of every country in the world, but I do know that there's a lot of immigration in Asia, there's a lot of immigration in Africa, and I know that the last time I was in Europe, I looked at the demographic studies that they had just published, and they said that they didn't believe that the immigrants were going to outnumber Europeans anytime in this foreseeable future because their birth rates were declining.
You also said in that study that immigration is slowing down, and it's not.
Yes, it is, because the European economy is drastically falling.
The immigration policies of Europe have not changed at all.
Yes, but we're seeing a rise of right-wing extremists in Europe, and we're seeing a decline in the economies of Europe. Well, and these things are almost always connected. That's the reason why we have a resurgence of skinheads in this country, is because people are poor, people are economically insecure.
Can you understand that as long as you guys keep saying that white people need to be singled out and that their countries need to continue being flooded with the third world and that white children have no other option, that maybe that the only option is either genocide or become a neo-Nazi, maybe you're going to start seeing neo-Nazis start coming out and there become a huge explosion of it. Can you understand that?
I can understand it, sure, but that doesn't mean that it's going to help. It's not going to help you to start focusing on the poor and the powerless in this country just because they're a little bit different from you. The only thing that's going to help you is if you organize with other people and fight for your rights against the people who have the power in this country. The people who have the power are not immigrants or ethnic minorities or religious minorities. The people who have the power are the rich, as it is in every country. And they are they're the ones who are threatening your future.
Well, so you admit that our future is threatened.
The whole world is threatened. The ocean will be dead in less than 50 years. And when they pull the last fish out of the ocean, you will be very threatened.
Well, but Again, the only country you can name where that has a high immigration policy is a very insignificant, very small country, whereas all these countries in Europe with very large populations, which are very dense, are continuously being flooded and forced into a situation that could end their culture. Now, you say you understand that it could happen or that it's going to bring about people being ticked off. So if there is an option to avoid conflict, why not take that?
That is no option to avoid conflict. And look, I don't know what the immigration numbers are in all the countries, but that's not the point. It's not. I'm not the one that's setting the immigration policies for all the countries in the world. All that I have to tell you is that I support immigration everywhere equally. I don't think that immigration is a threat to anybody, not in Africa, not in Asia, not in America, not in Latin America. Immigration is just not the problem.
Okay, but you do understand, as long as you guys have these sentiments and that white people are being singled out.
But I don't single you out for being white.
There's going to be some conflict, and it's going to escalate. Do you understand that? As long as you keep avoiding it and singling white people out, yet avoiding that you're actually doing that.
Yeah, I'm not singling you out. I'm not singling you out for being white, and I don't single you out for being racist. I'm just saying that racism is wrong. And look, the thing that will cause resurgence in right-wing extremism is not me. It's economics. It's very simple. When people are taken, when their power is taken away, when their livelihood is threatened, they get desperate, they get fearful, and if they misdirect their anger, then they'll start getting angry at people that are not really to blame for their problems. And if they do that, it is a virtual death sentence. Well, if you get angry at the thing that's not the problem, you can't fix the problem.
Well, I could tell you this. Even if the economy turns around, which it's not, but if it does, and the economy becomes even greater than what it was, white children are still going to notice that their countries which were white have been singled out, and they're all becoming non-white, and they are not going to embrace that. No normal Asian person would embrace that. No normal black person would embrace that. So as long as you keep on pushing this off, as long as the anti-whites keep pushing this off, it's going to amplify. I don't care how good or how bad the economy is. It's going to amplify no matter what. As long as you keep avoiding this elephant in the room and saying it's not an elephant, it's a fucking, guinea pig, you're just going to keep on amplifying it. And the elephants is just going to keep getting fatter and fatter.
People live together. That's just the natural way. If people didn't want to live with other types of people, then you wouldn't need to ever worry about it. The only reason why you're worried is because that's not what's happening. If all white children decided that it was a big problem for them if they weren't in the majority, then, you wouldn't have to ever open your mouth. They would already be exactly what you want them to be. But the fact is that white children, just like black children, don't see the existence of other people as a problem unless somebody convinces them that it's a problem. If they're okay, they don't care about other people. That's why people mix.
Well, again, you keep trying to make a few points in each one, and then I lose the point I was going to say. So,
I was just saying that white children don't necessarily see color as a big issue unless somebody convinces them that it's an issue.
Well, then, if it's not an issue, why is it so important that you single white children out and say, no, they should not have the same right that other groups have of self-preservation and self-determination? I mean,
I don't.
If you're really not anti white and you're anti-racist, then what is the big problem of saying, you know what, maybe white people, in order to avoid this conflict that is going to be coming up all over Western civilization, give them their own segment and allow them to do what they want.
Because I don't single out white people, and I don't believe that creating ethnic states is really a good idea, because every ethnic state has ended in catastrophe. You know, South Africa, when it was an ethnic state, that was a big mess. When Northern Ireland was an ethnic state, that was a big mess. Israel is an ethnic state. It's a big mess.
So the whole world is a catastrophe.
No, I didn't say that. I said when people try to make ethnic states. No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
States always have ethnic minorities, and they're not usually set up for one ethnicity.
Okay, so you're saying
Jews
that
in Iran, for instance,
has maybe a few thousand Nigerians, then that means white children need to be forced into a program of genocide.
No, it's not genocide when you live in peace with people who are different from you.
Unless it happens
it's
to
not genocide
non-whites.
for anybody.
No,
it's not. It's not. It's not genocide for Japan.
Okay, so the Aborigines had no genocide. Okay.
The Japanese are not the Australian Aborigines. It's a different situation.
Because they're different races. And white.
No, there's a different situation. It's a different situation.
Okay when it happens to them.
It's a different situation. You can't just draw these big parallels between things that are totally unrelated. Native Americans are not the same thing as you, and African Americans are not the same thing as a European colonist.
I think that's the point. It's when you compare the fact that one group was faced genocide through massive immigration and forced assimilation, that's wrong because they're not white. But when it happens to white people, then it's okay.
Well, you know, if white people were being treated the same way that Native Americans were treated, it would be wrong.
Okay,
but that's not what's happening.
So there's a treatment method within genocide. It's not the actual actions; it's also the treatment.
Are you so? If you're a victim of genocide, then how come you're free to live wherever you want? You can have as many children as you want, and even if you decided to have children with a black person, your descendants would have your genetic material. How can you qualify that as genocide?
Well, first off, they wouldn't have my genetic material.
Yes, they would.
They'd have half of it.
Right. They would have half of yours and half of somebody else's. That is still having your genetic material. That is the most amount of genetic material that you can ever contribute.
Well, if I contribute half and another person who has similar genes as I do, and they contribute a half, then the genetic process will be able to continue, and they'll continue having white children.
The only difference is that you are more likely to be similar to a black person than you are to a white person. There is more genetic variation within white people than there is between white people and black people.
I don't think that's true.
That is science.
Well, can you show me any peer-reviewed study that says there's more genetic diversity within white people than there are between black and white people?
Yes. Go to the Skeptical Heretic. He has the link on his channel.
Okay. The genetic diversity between blacks and whites is somewhere, I think, like 14, 16%, something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't believe there is a smaller.
Well,
genetic diversity. It just makes no sense.
Well, it makes sense when you think about the fact that we've always been mixing since the beginning of time. And a lot of African Americans have white ancestors and vice versa. And we're still different.
Well,
and if we weren't different,
people.
Yeah, black people, African Americans, same thing. So look.
Well, you just said that they're not black because they have white.
Well, they have some white ancestors, most of them. Yeah, that doesn't mean they're not black.
Okay, so the study was done through black Americans.
This is just looking at genetics. Go to the Skeptical Heretics channel, and he has the link there. He has a lot of information about genetics. And, like I said, if a black person and a white person get together and have a child, nobody's genes have been destroyed. And if you had a child,
Yes.
you would not see that as a
Half
bad
of their
thing.
genes have just been destroyed. And when you create a population that is full of people that have, halved their entire genome, and you keep that process going, eventually one group is going to have their genome annihilated, and or almost completely annihilated.
That's total nonsense.
When you do that only within a white country, the only people who are faced with a program of having their genes completely annihilated are white people.
That's total nonsense.
It's
You
not.
you can never contribute more than 50% of your genes to any offspring. And those genes will live on after you. It doesn't matter what the race of the other person is. It makes no difference at all.
If you continue mixing these people that do not have the full gene of that group of people that they initially had, then it's going to be wiped away. You could say, well, look, there's a genetic loci on this chromosome that matches a white person, and there's another one on this other black person that matches a white person. So they're all there. They're just scattered. I mean, it's absolutely fucking stupid.
Okay. But I mean, who cares?
Who cares? You're wiping away a group, and you're saying that it's not wiping it away because some of those allele and loci are on a chromosome within that are scattered and distributed between a million different black people, saying that somehow if they all interbred, then you might be able to come up with a white person again eventually. I mean,
why would you want to come up with a white person again? What's wrong with a black person?
Well,
what's wrong with your descendant if they happen to have a different skin color?
Well, I think that's the ultimate question. What's wrong with white people that they should be singled out and have this done to them?
No. You're just avoiding the question.
I think there's nothing wrong with black people existing. They should have the right to continue doing what everybody else does.
It's not a problem then.
And that's the whole point. Why are white people supposed to be singled out and said, you are the only group of people that have no right to self-preservation. You have to have all of your countries flooded with the third world, and we're not going to do it to anybody else, but we're going to tell you it's being done to everybody else, even though it's not. And if you don't accept it, you're a neo-Nazi skinhead white supremacist, and you want to kill everybody who doesn't look like you.
Because, first of all of that stuff you said is totally not true, as I've explained to you. Nobody's singling out white people. Nobody is trying to exterminate white people because, look, most of the people running these majority white countries are white. And they don't want to exterminate themselves. We're not pushing a giant lever to flood people from one place to another. It just so happens that the economic conditions warrant it. And, if you have an offspring with a black person, that's not going to destroy the white race. The white race got here because of, centuries of people procreating and mixing.
Well, so
and that's not going to stop us.
So what?
Just if we keep mixing the way we've always mixed from the beginning of time, we're not going to disappear. And if we did disappear, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Because it just means that our skin color changed. Our descendants are our descendants. It doesn't matter what their skin color is.
Okay, well then what you're saying is it's okay to genocide any group of people because
you're just putting words in my mouth.
Exist.
You're just putting words in my mouth. I don't think that it's okay to create genocide, but that's the inevitable result of ethnic supremacy and ethnic separation is you have to create genocide. Otherwise, you can never create a white state. Are you going to go around to black people and ask them nicely to go to Africa? You just had a filibuster. I'm answering.
What are you talking about?
You just had a filibuster. Now it's time for mine. Okay. Are you going to go around to every black person and ask them nicely to leave so that it won't be a genocide to you because they exist? It's not going to work. If you want a white state, you have to commit genocide.
All right. Well, here's the thing. It takes you a whole long time, a lot of time to make a single point. And it doesn't take me that very, not nearly as long as
Look, you're just whining now, and you just got an opportunity to speak for a long time.
I had like like maybe 13 seconds, and then you go on these long 3-minute tirades.
Yeah, you're always the victim,
I
aren't you?
go,
You're the victim of black people. You're the victim of me. You're always the victim, except you just happen to be a member of the group that has more power and more money and more privilege than all the other groups.
Well, I'm not a victim of anything.
Okay, then you're not a victim of genocide. You just admitted it.
I'm not a victim of you. Basically, what has happened is you accepted a debate, and then you keep on interrupting, and you want to go on for these 5-minute tirades, and I allow you to do it. I don't know why. I haven't really hung up 2 hours ago when you started doing this.
Okay. Well, I'll let you speak for a long time just now.
You well, basically every time in order for me to make a point, I have to bring up that you keep on interrupting me.
No,
I don't
before that, I'll let you talk. Look, this is just pointless arguing about this.
Well, I agree. I can't make a point without you interrupting, and then you go on these 4-minute tirades. It is pretty pointless.
I mean, when you whine about black people existing and being in your country, and now you're whining about me. I mean, this is a victimhood complex.
Well, you're just, I'll admit, when I was like 12, I was kind of pretentious like you, and very brainwashed and things of that nature about racism. I don't believe you really associate with minorities in any great number or anything like that. I think you're just pretentious.
Okay, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Doesn't really matter.
You're right. I can't. Except I can't believe that white people have a human right to exist. Otherwise, I'm a neo-Nazi skinhead.
You are a Nazi. You are pushing the moron mantra, which was written by a Nazi. So don't sit there and tell me that Nazis don't exist and racism doesn't exist. And you're a victim of genocide, but if you commit genocide against others, it doesn't matter. Okay, you're just a fucking liar.
Who am I? You keep on saying that in order for white people to exist, I have to murder other people.
Yeah, if you want to create an ethnic state, you're going to have to murder people. I asked you people from the bug swarm to give me any other ideas about how to create an ethnic state, and not a peep. Not a peep.
China has an ethnic state, and same with Japan.
I don't care about China. This is not China we're talking about here.
They haven't had to kill people to create a ethnic state.
Oh, really? They never killed people in China.
Well, they haven't had to kill minorities.
They killed Uyghurs. They killed Uyghurs. Did you know about that?
What are you talking about?
Do you know what a Uyghur is?
Please explain.
A Uyghur is a Chinese Muslim, not an ethnic Chinese person. They were killed on a massive scale.
Well, that's racial, or that's religious, not
No,
racial.
They were also ethnically distinct.
Then why did you say they were Muslim?
Because they're Muslim. They're not ethnic Chinese, and they are Muslim.
So they're not from China?
They are from China.
But they're not Chinese?
They're not ethnically Chinese like the majority of Chinese. I told you that there's ethnic and religious minorities in just about any country you could name. You don't think that they're totally homogeneous in China.
So they're from China and they're not Chinese.
I mean, look, you're just assuming all these things about other parts of the world.
Not really. I'm pretty well traveled.
Oh, okay. Well, you've got to understand that if you don't create a real genocide, you can never create an ethnic state because there's too many minorities living here. And if you then give me another idea. How are you going to get rid of the black people?
Well, again, if we take, let's say, the Northwest.
Okay, the Northwest,
and create a white country within the Northwest. We don't have to kill anybody. We just have them leave.
Deport them.
Correct.
That's ethnic cleansing. That's ethnic cleansing. That's also a crime against humanity.
That's not ethnic cleansing.
That is ethnic cleansing.
No,
that's the definition.
Them to leave and deporting them is not ethnic cleansing.
That is the definition of ethnic cleansing, forcing people to leave an area because of their ethnicity. That's ethnic cleansing. That's a crime against humanity.
Okay, well then you would say that what happened to Detroit was an ethnic cleansing?
Did anybody force somebody to leave from Detroit?
Yes, because they turned Detroit into a giant ghetto.
The government did that, not black people. Black people never controlled Detroit and took all the white people and put them on trucks.
There was an ethnic cleansing in Compton and Washington, D.C., obviously.
Those are ghettos. Nobody wants to live in those places. Those are ghettos. Compton is a ghetto.
It wasn't in the 50s.
Well, so did anybody force white people to leave? No. The government did not put...
They were forced to leave.
Yeah, you're just saying that because white people left. They weren't forced to leave.
They didn't want to live in those conditions. It was inhumane.
Exactly. So they didn't want to live there. They didn't want to live there, so they left. Nobody loaded them on a truck and made them leave. They left because they didn't want to live there. That's not ethnic cleansing. If all the black people decide to leave Oregon, that's not ethnic cleansing. It's ethnic cleansing if you drive them out.
When the population in European countries decrease, and everybody starts blending together, are you going to pretend it was all an accident?
I am not bothered by it. If they have, large ethnic diversity in Europe, I don't see that as a problem. I think that's great.
So you're not bothered by genocide. That's why you want to make
that is not genocide. It's not genocide when you live in peace with people who are different from you.
Okay, but if it does result in the deliberate destruction of a racial group, you don't mind.
Being a minority is not the same thing as being destroyed.
Well, actually,
you don't have a right to be a majority. You don't have a right.
It was destruction of the Aborigines.
Yeah, but, that's very different, okay? That's not the same situation. That's not the same situation at all. And it has nothing to do with race. It's a very different situation. And if white people don't happen to be the majority in Europe, it wasn't a deliberate plan by somebody. It's just the way the demographics worked. And that's not bad.
If they know that that white people are in a situation where their racial group could be destroyed and they continue flooding white countries with non-whites and keep on allowing it, that shows that they're doing it deliberately, does it not?
That is not destroying white people. Allowing non-white people to move into an area is not destroying white people.
When you create a society that tells white people that they need to blend themselves out of existence and that they should hate themselves for a history, and they deliberately mislead children and miseducate them into hating themselves and telling them with Hollywood and entertainment industry that they need to mix together, and then you want to pretend it's all an accident when white people are calculated to become, or when white countries are calculated to become non-white, correct?
All of these are just straw men. You're telling me things that aren't really real.
I'm asking you.
No. Look.
Okay, what's not real?
Nobody is telling white children to hate themselves because they're white.
Yes, they are.
Well, you don't mind that because you don't come out against racism against white people. So that's okay according to you if that's true. But I'm telling you that I'm not telling white children to hate themselves. I never said that. And I don't think anybody who's against racism is saying that. I mean, that is just a ridiculous position. And it's a straw man. Like this straw man that people are flooding white countries and no other countries, or the straw man that a white country is a white country. I mean, just because there's more white people than other ethnicities doesn't mean that the country is owned by a skin color. These are all straw men. These are all straw men.
I think you got me on the point that it's not white countries because you were able to name one really small country.
Well, you told me that I couldn't name one country, and I named one country. That's what you wanted.
And then I asked you to name another one.
Oh, so when you moved the goalpost, okay, so when you moved the goalpost, I didn't kick it again. Is that your complaint?
Actually, you moved the goalpost because you said there was numerous countries, and I asked you to name another one.
That's not moving the goalpost. You asked for one country, and I gave you one. And I told you that I don't know every single country in the world what kind of immigration they have, but I do know that there's a lot of immigration throughout the world. People move all the time, and that's not a bad thing.
You said that you knew that there were numerous countries that
have
immigration
were
calculated to where the majority becomes a minority.
No, I didn't say that. I said there's numerous countries that have large levels of immigration. I don't know about calculating what's going to become a majority or a minority. I mean, that's totally irrelevant. I mean, I don't care about that stuff. And you asked for a country that was a majority immigrant, and I gave you one. That's what you asked for, and you moved the goalpost.
No, again, you did, because you said there were numerous. And
I didn't say that. I didn't say there were numerous countries.
I'll be able to play it.
Yeah, you recorded and go listen again, because obviously you didn't hear.
I did, because I brought it up directly after you brought it up.
Yeah, I said there are numerous countries.
And then went on to a different conversation.
I said there's numerous countries that have large levels of immigration. That's what I said, and that is true. I don't know how many countries might be majority immigrant. I doubt that there's that many, but that's totally immigration. I mean, that's totally irrelevant.
Okay, well, I think ultimately here, you're saying that you're going to support it, and you don't care if it's intentional or not. That you're going to support.
Okay, look. This is going in circles, and I have to go. Okay, well, I don't have all night for this. So, look, you refuse to accept what I tell you about me, and that's okay. Okay, so we're talking in circles here. You keep telling me what I think, and I'm telling you what I think, and this has gone on long enough. This is what, like 3 hours? Okay, it's over. Bye-bye.
Coward.